Meeting. We do have all of our board members present in person tonight, and we have a special guest, Montecito High School, in the house. They're our showcase school. Thank you and welcome. Is there anyone from Montecito that wanted to lead the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Great. Wonderful.
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Is my mic working? Is it on? Okay, great. We did have a couple of items that we took action on in closed session. Mr. Drum, would you read that out, please?
Yes, ma'am. In closed session today, by motion of Member Darren Drum, seconded by Member Dan Summers, the board voted to enter into and approve a settlement for existing litigation / conference with legal counsel, Government Code Section 54956.9, Section D, subsection A. Chivarik et al. And Ramona versus Ramona Unified School District et al. San Diego Superior Court case number 37-2023-000-553-53-CU-PO-CTL. The settlement in this case was approved by the following roll call vote. The ayes were Darren Drum, Dan Summers, Don Perfect, Maya Phillips, Roger Dome. No persons abstained, and there were no votes in opposition. The second settlement, it's just as lengthy, so forgive me. In closed session today by it's longer. In closed session today by motion of Member Darren Drum, seconded by Member Dan Summers, the board voted to approve a settlement agreement in the matter of Persea, R, a minor, by and through her guardian, ad litem, Dana R., an individual. Jacqueline A., a minor, by and through her guardian ad litem, Oscar A., an individual. Plaintiffs versus Ramona Unified School District, a public entity, and does 1 through 50 inclusive defendants. San Diego Superior Court case number 37-2023-00031-888 CU-PO-CTL. This settlement agreement will release any and all pending claims against the district. A copy of the agreement is available upon request. The settlement in this case was approved by the following roll call vote. Those voting aye were Maya Phillips, Roger Dome, Darren Drum, Dan Summers, Don Perfect. There were no votes in opposition and no members abstained. That's it. Good evening. The Ramona Unified School District welcomes your participation at the district school board meetings. Your participation assures us of continuing community interest in our schools. To assist you in the ease of speaking and or participating in our meetings, the following guidelines are provided. Orange, request to be heard cards are available to all audience members who wish to speak on any agenda item or under the category of item E, which is public comment. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes per person or 15 minutes per item. I will be your timekeeper. Me and Mr. iPhone. Submit your completed orange cards to the board's recording secretary in advance of the item presentation. Orange request to be heard cards will not be accepted once the agenda item has commenced. Speakers are asked to direct all comments to members of the board. All participants are asked to be respectful of other speakers when they are addressing the board. Please, public comment is set aside for members of the audience to raise issues that are not specifically on the agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes per person or 15 minutes per item. Public comments may be submitted online at the link listed at the top of the agenda. Please note that electronically submitted comments will be printed and distributed to board members and will not be read aloud during the meeting.
Thank you. B5, and that H3 from consent. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
You're the first.
Oh.
Second with the changes.
Thank you. Maya, what I have is you approving the agenda, pulling H2 and H3 from consent.
That's correct.
Okay, and Roger is the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you. Next is C6, and that is approval of the consent calendar.
I move approval.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Actually, those items were in the consent calendar. I think I jumped too quickly.
It's fine. They're pulled for discussion now. So, yes. So Roger's the first. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously. And as part of that consent calendar, we did have our personnel list. I believe we have someone special to introduce tonight. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes, we sure do. President Perfect, members of the board, and members of the public this evening, we are excited to welcome Jennifer Dodds to Ramona Unified School District as the principal of Barnett Elementary School. So congratulations. We are so glad you're here. Had a somewhat of a grueling interview experience and just did an excellent job. And we are all, as the leadership cabinet, just very excited to have you here on behalf of the board and our district. So welcome.
Would you give a wave so people know who we're talking about? All right. Thank you, and welcome to Ramona Unified. All right, that's exciting. Okay, we are now on section D, and that is recognitions and presentations. And item D1, as I mentioned, our showcase school tonight is Montecito High School.
All right. Good evening, board members, Dr. Thurman and cabinet. I'd like to invite the Montecito High School ASB class, the members who are present, to come on up and just stand right here with me, please. And Mrs. Wagner. This is just a cross-section of the absolutely dynamic group of student leaders that we have this year. And they have put together some slides and some highlight reel for you this evening. But before they go through, they're each going to kind of give you a little overview. But before they do, I'm going to introduce everybody to you. So these are all seniors except Ashley, right? You're a junior. So this is Natalie Alva, Ashley Ariano, Leslie Noriaga, Mr. McCrone, our special education and PE teacher, Mrs. Wagner, our ASB and electives teacher, Angie Saldana, and, of course, you know Kiana Bugos.
Welcome.
So, here we go. The first up is going to be Natalie and Ashley.
Our construction CTE program built some planter boxes for Hanson Elementary first aid kindergarten class to build sand and paint for a school garden.
Our construction CTE advanced students class had built a one-bedroom model home and wired it for home and auto theater as part of our learning for home auto visual and wiring. Montecito students peer tutor at Ramona Elementary every morning, building career skills and contacting in the education community.
This is our sports program. We have co-ed teams in every sports like basketball, soccer, and also flag football. We make sure that each and every student of ours at Montecito High School have a chance to join our team that we have here at Montecito.
For our before and after school clubs, it's actually one of my favorite aspects at our school, or we call it assets. It's a great way. We have clubs from gaming club and esports, after-school rec room with pool and ping pong for our students, as well as our sports, as Leslie just mentioned. It's such a great way for our students to earn credits, make friends, and learn new skills or just participate in new activities they might not have ever tried before in a really safe and positive environment.
Our ASB hosts several community service events during the year, including a clothing drive and a blood drive. It is so much fun to see our community come together in service of other people.
Our primary goal is to make school more fun by keeping the culture kind and planning silly events to lighten the mood. This keeps students coming to school and helps students feel appreciated.
And of course, we wouldn't be anywhere without the amazing Montecito High School staff. This incredible group of educators is really focused not just on getting kiddos to make up their credits, but also to prepare them for life after high school, for college and career readiness. And we do try to have a little bit of fun while we're there. And I think every kiddo that attends Montecito will tell you that the Montecito High School staff is one of the most caring group of individuals around, that they really go the extra mile to work one-on-one with students and make them feel welcome and safe while we're also getting them ready for what's next. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I also want to thank Mr. Hissam, our attendance and registrar, is here today, and Mr. Jordan, who you're going to see in just a minute. So give us just a sec.
So I have a quick comment. Just for the record, it was very noticeable that you have an all-female leadership team, and I love it. Well done, girls.
There are a couple of boys. There's one boy, right? Two boys. We have two boys, but they couldn't be here tonight.
Very good. Any questions? Excellent. Our next item is student and program highlight, Ramona Rotary High School Students of the Month.
I would like to introduce Eva Trieger from Ramona Rotary to recognize our Students of the Month. And who would you like to have come up first? Which school? Let's have all three of our students come on up. So, MVA, Ramona High School, and Montecito High School. And since I see that you have Montecito on top, I'm going to invite Mr. Jordan to come on up and tell you a little bit about why Angie is Student of the Month, followed by Mr. Grizzle from Ramona High, and then MVA will bring it home, okay? And Mr. Grizzle, why don't you come on up, MVA teacher, come on up.
Thank you for the school board, Dr. Thurman, everybody. Thank you, Rotary. This means a lot. I've been doing this for many years, as long as I've been teaching, so thank you so much. I appreciate being here. So there's so much I can say about Miss Angie here. She was captain of the soccer team. She excels in my class. She's not afraid to swing a hammer, and she's a leader in my classroom. That's what I'm looking for, is leaders. I'm really excited for her future. She's going to go into cosmetology, which I'm very excited about. She's actually taking her cosmetology OSHA through my class right now. She does peer tutoring in the morning, which is awesome. You know, I have a lot of patients doing that. She gets a little taste of what us teachers go through. And also we collaborate with Corey Gilbert's classroom at Hanson, and she was a big leader over there, and the kids just clinged onto her, and you can see her just take it and run with it, and she did an amazing job. So it's my honor to stand here next to you, and I'm looking forward to your future, and you're an amazing person, and just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna go far in life. So thank you.
So I am both not used to talking without a slide deck when I'm giving a presentation, and I'm also not used to talking to so many people who are close to my own age, so forgive me here. But I chose to recognize Marley Ray. She's a kid that I've known since her junior year, I think, is when you first walked into my class at lunch, right? And I was thrilled when Marley got picked, because I was really trying to pick a kid who isn't always in the spotlight. We have so many amazing kids at Ramona High School. Marley is one of them, but some of them stand out a little more visibly than others because they're involved with sports or they're involved with ASB leadership. And Marley's a kid who can really fly under the radar if you let her, and that's a shame because she's a fantastic kid. Right away, She's a capable student. She's taking AP classes when she doesn't even necessarily have plans to go to college straight after high school. I wish she'd taken my AP Econ class, but I can forgive you for that. She's taking 6 classes as a senior instead of just doing the usual 4 and getting out of there, and she's acing all of them. Right now, her lowest grade, I think, is mine, and it's a 95%, right? So, I mean, she's doing an amazing job in all of her classes, and she's always on task. She's asking the deeper questions. She very clearly cares about what she's learning, not just getting the grade, right? On top of that, she helps create a positive community. In my class, there's a couple of kids who really struggle with the content, who have a difficult time accessing it at the grade level, and Marley works with them, collaborates with them, makes them feel like they're part of this classroom community, and a lot of kids her age are scared to do that, you know, they don't want to take that step. She goes out of the way outside of the classroom to try to bring people in, try to make people feel welcome at our school if they don't always feel like there's a space for them. Marley's going out of her way to create that space. And she wants to make a positive impact when she's out of here. She's a civically minded kid. When the election was happening, she was asking questions, she was watching coverage. She probably watched more election coverage than I did, and I'm a civics teacher. She cares about what's going on in her community, and she wants to serve her community. She plans on going into the military when she's out of here and serving our country through the armed forces, and I just always think that that's a commendable thing. So I'm really proud of you, kid. I'm stoked you got picked. Keep doing what you're doing because you're going to be very successful in life.
Wow, it's really hard to beat those 2 great speakers. I am going to be reading mine. My name is Lori Statham, and I'm the math teacher at Mountain Valley Academy. And the teachers unanimously vote for one deserving student each month. And this year we're so honored to present Katie Pichelle. I have a couple words from all your teachers, well, some of your teachers. Katie is a fantastic scholar. She always goes above and beyond with assignments and engages in classroom discussions. She is eager to help her peers when they need it, and just an all-around wonderful human being. That was Mrs. Ayers. She's a fantastic actor. I wonder who that was. And student. She has saved me in drama twice. I needed a Scrooge, and she stepped up when no one else did. I had an actor drop out the week before the play, and she stepped in and memorized and perfected the part. She is just a wonderful person who puts way too much pressure on herself. That's Mrs. Nelson. Katie is self-motivated and usually is the first student to turn in her homework. She asks good questions and works for comprehension and not just completion. That's Ms. Lopez. I've had the pleasure of knowing Katie for the past 2.5 years. Unfortunately, I do not have you this year. I'm very, very sad. But for the 2 years I had her in my honors classes, she was an integral part of her team. You could tell that she loved the subject matter, right? But beyond that, she wanted everyone else to understand and enjoy it too. She's a model student and one that all the teachers want in your class year after year, and she's a true friend to the MVA community. Last spring, she received both the Leadership and Academic Achievement Award. She's worked incredibly hard in all her classes, and it shows because she's earning an above 4.0 GPA. Education is certainly a priority for Katie, and we at MVA are so honored to help you along your path. Some of the other pastimes of Katie: she works at the Ramona Library, and she's been working there since her sophomore year. She assists in events like the Teen Hangouts and San Diego Nights. She helps with shelving and other organizational tasks. She is also the founder and president of the Creative Writing Club. I'd love to know what you're writing. Are you guys writing a book? Books. Awesome. I want to read it. You also help out your family and your mom when you are helping out for the Boy Scouts, right? So Boy Scouts for the Tigers. Congratulations on your hard work, Katie. The staff and teachers here at MVA, we applaud you. You are a most definite, deserving person, and we are so excited that you are MVA's Student of the Month. I'm sure we all want to hear about what you're doing after high school.
Do they get a chance to talk or no? Sure.
Okay, well, then you can explain that later. Congratulations.
I'm going to be speaking to each of these wonderful people, but I'm going to ask if the board will allow me to bring their parents up to say just a couple words. Is that okay?
Sure.
Great. Okay. All right. So if you have parents here or close people that are representing you, they're welcome to come up. Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to hand out your certificates, and hopefully somebody's going to take pictures. Okay. Thank you. Katie? It's yours. Okay. And Angie? Thank you. Thank you all. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over, but I just want to ask a question of, and again, I'm going to ask parents to be brief, but just to tell us of what your child has done that you've watched them grow and how they flourished. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Thurman. Hope everyone's having a good night. My daughter Marley is an amazing individual. She has always been an old soul. She's always known that she wanted to serve her country and her community from the time she was little bitty. It started in pre-K. She started helping others. She started helping others feel welcome. Yes, she does fly under the radar. She does not like attention. But I'm proud that she can reach out to other students and make them feel welcome, and it makes me very proud to be her mother. I'm very proud of her and her accomplishments, and I can't wait to see what her future holds for her. Thank you. You're welcome.
I'm Elizabeth, and this is my daughter Katie, and I think she is just the sweetest, most loving daughter anyone could ever ask for. She has a heart of gold, and she is super intelligent and super funny. She's going to be the first person to reach out to anybody who needs a friend, who needs help. She does put way too much on herself, too much pressure, but she gets it done. She gets everything done. She goes above and beyond, and I'm just beyond proud in everything that you do, and you're going to be amazing in whatever you choose to do with your life, and I love you so much.
My daughter is really special. She is an amazing person. She doesn't help around the house. I'll tell you that. But she's one of a kind. She does love me a lot. She loves her sister, even though she doesn't. But it's okay. She's one of a kind. And I'll tell you something. She's a keeper.
Oh, that's so nice.
She will always be in my heart and my daughter's heart. And it is what it is. She's amazing. You are amazing.
To our Students of the Month, I just want to say from the Rotary that we are really proud and we are excited for you, and we know that you have a very bright future. We've heard your teachers say amazing things about you. We've heard your parents say great things about you, and I know I'm standing here with these three amazing women. I'm very excited for your future. So thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Very nice. Right, well, that was absolutely lovely. I don't remember a time in our boardroom where we've had parents have the opportunity to tell us what they think is wonderful about their students. So that was just really nice. Very, very nice. Thank you. All right, we are now on item 3, and that is our student board members. And we'll go ahead and let's start with Izzy. Big voice.
Hello, board members and Dr. Thurman. So at Mountain Valley Academy, we're gearing up and getting excited for Thanksgiving break, but we still have had a lot of activities happening. Excuse me. A little bit ago, we had a library field trip for the K through 3rd grade, since we are a K through 12 campus, and we still have to make sure that they get their little activities as well. All right. And we also had a mission field trip to the San Diego mission for the 2nd graders through the 7th graders. Along with that, we have our MVA extras every Wednesday for the K through 5th grade. The fire department came out last week, I believe, and they had an egg drop activities. They did a craft for Dia de los Muertos, as well as additional science and arts activities for extra enrichment for these kids. Along with that, on the high school end, we have had ASB events like our movie night 2 weeks ago, and we had a Gothic masquerade dance last Friday. That was super fun to put on, and I think the students really enjoyed it. The 8th graders also have their own ASB, and they did a game night for them as well, so that way the 8th graders who don't normally get to be involved in the high school events are also able to have activities outside of the classroom. And finally, we have our tie-dye night this Friday, which is super exciting. It's always a big event each year, and the kids enjoy bringing their own shirts and socks and everything for people like the PTSA and ASB members to tie-dye for them. So yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, Izzy. I knew you could handle the crowd noise. You have a little experience with that, right? Thank you. All right, Holden, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Holden Jordan. I'm the student board representative from Ramona High School. Thank you to Dr. Thurman, President Perfect, and the RUSD board and cabinet for having me here tonight and providing me with the opportunity to represent Ramona High School. ASB is hosting a winter assembly to recognize the upcoming winter sports teams: girls and boys basketball, boys and girls wrestling, boys and girls soccer, and girls water polo. This assembly will be next Friday on November 22nd. Sports-wise, basketball is having their alumni game tomorrow, November 16th. It is their first game, and it's tomorrow at 7. Basketball is also hosting the ALS game with Coach Schaefer, November 21st, and SDSU basketball players will be there. Football made it to their playoffs, quarterfinals, their first seed Division 4. Their game is Friday night, 7 p.m. against Montgomery High School next Friday. Volleyball made it to quarterfinals but lost to Brawley in 3 tie games. And a great congratulations to our girls tennis team, our league champs in Palomar League for the second year in a row. NJROTC is currently 7th in the nation and 5th in qualifying. Last weekend they placed 7th and won 11 out of 12 available medals. They are 5-0 in quarterfinals. For activities, we had Day of the Dead was November 1st, and ASB teamed up with the library staff and set up an ofrenda for the students to celebrate past loved ones. ASB is also doing birthdaygrams, where we go to people's 4th period class and sing them happy birthday and give them a little treat from somebody else that bought it for them. And Dance Productions is hosting their annual Dance Winter Concert of 2024. The theme is Perspective. It's on December 6th at 7 p.m. in the PAW. Tickets are $10. And finally, for finals, we're getting soon. So Cram Slam for finals is December 16th. ASB is hosting that. And that is the Monday for finals, so students can come in and study for their finals. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have report from California School Employee Association, Chapter 733. Or not. Okay, Ramona Teachers Association. Welcome, Corey. Thanks for the reminder.
That's what I figured. So, kindergarten at Hanson Elementary, with the help of their wonderful 6th grade classes, had a fall festival on Halloween. The 6th graders created carnival games for the TK and kinder classes, and the students ran all the games and helped the younger students to be successful. A great time was had by all. Next up for Kinder and TK at Hanson is going to a field trip to Bates Nut Farm, where they'll discuss living things such as plants and animals that you would find on a farm. Hanson Student Council is holding their annual holiday food drive to donate goods to the Ramona Food and Clothes Closet. We have a couple RHS clubs doing the same, along with other schools in our district, who are all collecting items for our community during the weeks leading up to some big holidays. MVA High School had a really fun Victorian dance last week. RCMS students are greatly enjoying having art class with Mrs. Miller. RCC PTSA is putting on a tie-dye activity tomorrow. And the MVA After School Club MVA Extras has some great science lessons, including chemical reactions, egg drops, and even a visit from a fire truck. OPMS Theater Department is hosting their first live performance tonight, actually, for family and community. At RHS, Mrs. Del Castillo and Ms. Shoddy had the opportunity to attend a virtual summer program for the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles, put on by Visual Thinking Skills, which is a great program that helps students develop critical thinking skills. Not only was that a great experience, but to their surprise, the result was the opportunity to apply for the Young Sheldon School Initiative STEM and Music Grant, which we just found out was approved by the Chuck Lorre Family Foundation for Ramona High School for $7,500. Which is pretty cool. Also check out the RHS social media today. Our fire science class got to actually go to the airport for the air attack to learn all about fighting fires using the air attack and all of the different components with that. So there's some pictures up there, and our students are really enjoying that expanded class. On another note, I want to address bargaining and the direction of our district. While I understand budgets are not what they have been over the last few years, education is fully funded according to the budget meetings we have all attended together, RTA leadership, RUSD leadership, and board members at the county office. So while funding is not increasing, we do need to actually sit down and prioritize and sit together to create a plan. It's frustrating when we come to the table to discuss numbers and issues that need to be addressed, yet all we get are blank stares and fake smiles. I lived in the times of budget cuts and furlough days. I've been there. I've also lived these last few years of plenty. I realize there are ebbs and flows in education and in budget, so we are reasonable in our expectations, but we do need to have both parties willing to actually sit down and have honest conversations and not be put off any longer. Please make sure tonight that you provide direction for the RUSD leadership to be able to actually talk numbers and specifics at the December 12th date for bargaining. Just a reminder, we are bargaining for the current school year, which we're almost halfway through. So conversations don't really mean anything anymore if there's never going to be a resolution or solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. We are now on section E, and that is public comment. This is the time that we would take comments from regarding items that are not on tonight's agenda. Do we have it?
No.
Okay, thank you. Moving to section F, educational services. First item to address is F5, report on pilot of instructional materials for culinary arts and international cuisine.
Good evening, board. Tonight we bring forward one pilot for instructional materials. As an information item, Culinary Professional is the title of the text, and this will be used by the Culinary Arts and International Cuisine course. It will run January through April, and we anticipate bringing the text back to the board in May of 2025 for approval. As with all pilots, this text will go through the same process. It will be out in the hallway after this board meeting, available for review. It will be added to the instructional materials survey. It will go to DAC. It will go to DLAC, and it will go to school site councils so that parents are also able to review it and provide feedback.
Excellent, thank you. And I believe board members received a copy of that as well, yes?
Mm-hmm.
All right, excellent. This is information only, no action, so we will move to item F6, and that is public hearing for changes to board policy 6158 regarding independent study. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Board members, tonight we bring forward a revised course of study for independent study, and in reviewing the recommendations, we learned that this particular policy, RUSD is required to hold a public hearing in order to allow the community to provide any comment. This item serves as the public hearing for approval of resolution for the independent study board policy 6158.
Very good. So it does seem a little out of order because we haven't really discussed what those changes might be, but I'll follow the agenda, and at this time I will open the public hearing. Public hearing is now open, so if anyone would like to address the board on this board policy change regarding independent study, this would be the time to come forward, even without an orange speaker slip. Seeing none, hearing will be closed. Hearing is closed. Item F7 is first reading of recommended changes to Board Policy 6158 regarding independent study.
A governing board, this item is discussion possible action for the board pertaining to the revised Board Policy 6158 for independent study. This policy brings forward the changes in legislation that allow the district to collect additional ADA for shorter term contracts. It also includes educational code language around requirements for students who would like to go on independent study that are also students with disabilities. And it updates the ed code around tiered re-engagement. And finally, it also aligns the change in legislation that defines the length of what short-term and long-term independent study actually is.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, board, so this is a first reading. Anything to chat about here?
There's something I noticed on page 5 at the top. It says, if requested by the student or parent guardian to request an advocate. But the previous paragraph is inconsistent with that. There was another sentence very similar that says upon the request of the parent guardian of a student. So there's no mention of a student requesting anybody. I wonder why there is permission of says the student can request an advocate.
Right.
So it makes me think that it's sort of bypassing parents, because parents are students' advocate. They have the power to request an advocate. I don't see how a student would request an advocate and parents don't know about that. And parents are not involved in that process. So student is a minor. I don't see how he can request an advocate that's not requested by parents.
Okay. So Leslie, can you explain a little bit about how an advocate would participate in this process and what would initiate that?
Let me go back to see exactly the area that she's referring to. I'm thinking this is upon the request of parent guardian of a student and before signing a written agreement as described below in the master agreement, the district shall conduct a conference, I'm skipping over in-person, yada yada, a conference or other meeting, and they may request for a student parent guardian, the student parent guardian, and if requested by the student or parent guardian, an advocate may ask questions. Is that the section you're referring to be clear?
Yes.
Above master agreement. So an advocate may be a part of this conversation if a student, well, in any case, actually, any student or parent guardian can ask for an advocate, but most generally speaking, it would be a student with an IEP to ensure that the student's rights or anything that belongs, like with the IEP, would be there. This language, adding the student or parent guardian may request the advocate, is a part of the change in ed code that CSBA is drawing our attention to. So it is allowing for a student to do that, and you may have a student who's 18 who does it. You may have a student who's not 18 who asks for who has an advocate. But we're not providing the advocate. They're asking for their advocate to attend the meeting,
Okay, my
which we would
question was
allow.
not about advocate. My question was about allowing student to request an advocate.
Right.
Which is their right.
Okay, so it's in accordance with the ed code.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Just on the first page, can you explain the meaning? It's this paragraph before the last paragraph. It's like one sentence. Explain what that exactly means.
Absolutely. So with the change in law, it used to be that Education Code told us that independent study was 3 days or more, right? So we could start collecting ADA or recouping ADA if a parent turned in paperwork after 3 days. So if my daughter was out for 2 days, I couldn't submit for independent study and we could not recoup the ADA for those 2 days. Now, legislation has changed in an effort to help us with chronic absenteeism, help us recoup ADA, all of those pieces that allows, there's no minimum any longer. So we can offer 1 day of independent study. We must offer 3 days. So we have the flexibility as a district. This is where this is our choice. We could not say 1 day, but we would be missing out potentially on ADA for 1 day or 2 days when students are out. And we are allowed to have that contract for 1 day or 2 days. We are required, that's why you have the language of may and shall there. So we may allow it at 1 day or 2. We shall do it at 3. Does that help?
I understand.
Okay.
With your explanation.
Okay.
Just when you read that, it's
Yes.
like, this sounds like a contradiction.
Yes. And it goes further when we get into the actual written agreements and all of our documentation that has to be updated to align with this. There's more context to it. This is just the code piece. And this is one of the pieces within the policy that we can decide because it is not required that we do it at 1 day. It's not required that we do it at 2 days. It is required at 3. But we lose out on ADA if we don't do it at 1 day or 2 days.
So is this an arrangement that always needs to be made in advance, or can this be done after the fact?
So if we go to, there is a couple different pieces. You can request 10 days, let's see. The work has to be completed within 10 days of after returning for, so we're talking 2 different types of independent study. We're going to have short-term independent study and long-term independent study. So you can have 10 days, that would be on that second page where we have that change from 1 week to 10 days after it being assigned, after returning from school on short-term independent study. So if we're at 15 days or less, you have 10 days to return the assignments. Previously, we had 1 week upon return. And then if you come down to, I can show you the next language. So then when we get into the tiered re-engagement, which is more for long-term independent study, that's where you'll see that 10% of required instructional time if they're not participating in synchronous, or 50% of synchronous in a month. So that's more long-term. Think of more like MVA situation when we're talking about long-term independent study in that way. As far as signing the contract, a parent can sign the contract at any time during the school year. So they could sign a written agreement, and it could be they had independent study at the beginning of the school year and the paperwork hasn't caught up yet, and they can sign that piece of paper on the last week of school and we still can collect the IDA.
So
like parent who says take an extra week at spring break with child out of school, gets to the end of the semester, student isn't doing well, they can then go back and say we want independent study for that missed week and make up that work?
No, not quite like that. Not quite like that. If we go, let me find, because when they return, right, you only have 10 days. So you can't ask for, you can ask for it, but you would have had to already complete the assignments. So it's not like, if that makes sense, because we have the 10-day window here, when they return, you have 10 days from when you return. So you could go back and say, I want an independent study contract for that week I was out, but we don't then have to then give them 10 days from the time they ask for that to turn the work in. It's from the day they return from that contract date. Does that make sense? Okay. It's very like, because technically they can ask for that independent study in arrears, but we can't require a teacher to then go back 20 weeks ago and say, okay, now you're going to do all these assignments in that week. That's why we have that 10 days. So once you return, You have 10 days to turn it in. Yes.
So I just wanted to clarify.
Sure.
Is this coming from CSBA? Is this their suggestions? Is this coming from updates in the law?
Updates in the law. So the things that are our choice, so there are a couple things in here that are RUSD choice. That's the one, may be one, and shall be three. The shall be three is what we're required. The may be one is up to us. The 15 days and 16 days on what short-term and long-term independent study are, that's law. The 10 days instead of 1 week, that's our choice. It's recommendations from CSBA, and that's our choice to extend that in order to be able to recoup that ADA. The educational progress, I'm sorry.
Can we make that any number we want?
We can make it any number we want. We're trying to be reasonable for teachers with grading and with all of those pieces, and also reasonable amount of time for a student, if they were to come back and have been confused by assignment, be able to get with those teachers and be able to finish the work.
So we can say it's 10 days to tell all the teachers, but technically we have all the time in the world. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, we would need to follow our policy. Whatever the board decides is going to be the policy. That's what we'll put into our written agreements and all of those things that will come after.
Okay.
So tonight, whatever those days are, which the recommendation is 10, that would be what would follow and what would be the expectation for students and families and teachers.
Okay. And then that's the same thing for the 4 assignments instead of 3 assignments?
So the
So how
4
does that-
assignments during the semester is our choice versus the language of when it says previously it said when a student fails to attend or complete independent study assignments for a period of 10 days. The language that this is a recommendation for CSBA and administration felt like 4 days was reasonable. I think if I remember right, it was on CSBA's they had more days, more assignments missed during the semester, and we made, I think, 1 less assignment, if I recall. But that 4 was our number. 4 is our number. The language is more about the number of assignments showing satisfactory educational progress.
So, I wonder if we could adjust that, because some classes have projects which can last an entire week. Where some classes have an assignment every day. So like if they just say, I'm not doing the work, I was gone, I come back, and it's like, well, that could have been 5 assignments for that week. So that fits that threshold. But what if they had a project that lasted the whole week?
I think that would be up to the discretion of that teacher to determine, like, if a whole project definitely would be weighted differently than 1 worksheet, I would say, right?
You could say, this is 4 assignments or equivalent.
Okay. Is that, should I make that note for right now?
I don't know,
I support it.
Everybody.
I'll put it here and then we can. Okay.
Okay. Absolutely, please.
On the 10 days, does that mean a teacher has to get full credit for 10 days later, or is that just credit for attendance? If a teacher has a 5-day later policy, does that student still get 10 days?
Yes. So you get 10 days after the day you return, because essentially you're on an independent study contract, and then you get that 10 days after. If they're after that 10 days, then it becomes 1 day late, 2 day late, 3 day late, 4 day late, 5 days late.
So is that for attendance or for credit?
I'm not following. This is all about, when we're talking about the 10 days, it's about work. Yeah.
So assuming
Attendance, they get attendance credit based on work completion that they turn back in. So even if they did say they did half of the work that a teacher assigned, they would get half of their attendance credit or ADA credit. So the school would not receive 100% of the funding for that period if they didn't do all of the work. Does that help? Okay.
But when we talk about credit, they get their the grade that is earned on the assignment.
Yes.
In full, and it's not penalized at all.
Correct.
Okay. Was that sort of the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I had the same one.
Yes.
Sorry, I have one more quick question,
Yes,
Roger.
please.
When we say 10 days, 15 days, are we talking about school days or calendar days?
I would say school days, but we could add that clarification.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure.
It says school days on the next one.
Oh, does it?
On the next one?
And I believe like on our written agreements and our paperwork, it says school days also.
Okay.
But we can add that here also, just
That would be
for
good.
clarity.
So just another clarifying question, just so I'm clear. So if a student, to be on independent study, whatever the reason is, they're gone for X amount of time, they're now on independent study, what is the minimum amount of time before you're on, to be on independent study? What is it, the 16 days? What is it?
Minimum?
Yeah.
1. You can go on independent study for 1 day now, and we can recoup your attendance credit.
Okay. I guess I'm not,
That's for short term, and then when you go to 16 days or more, that's long term, and the rules have changed drastically with long term, which then requires synchronous and live instruction. We currently in Ramona Unified are not going to offer long-term independent study other than in a situation like MVA. That would require all of our teachers to then be Zooming also on top of their regular day to provide long-term independent study. We are not in a situation or place where we can do that or offer that situation right now. If someday we had a team of people who were independent study long-term, we found that was what was crippling us for chronic absenteeism, and we hired somebody that was going to be the person to do that, that's one thing. But to ask a classroom teacher to then Zoom every day to provide live, we're not doing that. We're only doing that for the situations like MVA and Future Bound, where we actually have a long-term independent study program.
and what about like when a student, they're going on vacation, it's gonna be over a week, and they have a contract to do homework, so we can recoup that for, I don't know what you call it here, and then they come back, and then they have to turn all their homework in, and we recoup all those.
That would be short-term independent study. And say somebody's going to be out for 3 weeks. We would put them on a short-term independent study contract, and then we would just not get credit for anything beyond that 15th day.
But we're not Zooming with them.
No, we are definitely not Zooming with them.
I just wanna make sure I understood.
Yes, so so if a family was choosing to go on a 3-week, trip to Italy,
Yeah.
we would put them on an independent study contract for up to 15 days. On the 16th day after that, teachers are still going to provide them the work. They just won't can still provide them the work. I should rephrase how I say that. Can still provide them the work so that they would be able to do it and all of those things. However, we will not be putting them on a long-term independent study contract and asking teachers to Zoom and do live instruction and synchronous instruction for students that are doing that.
Got it. We should just turn all those into field trips, and
There you go.
All right. Dan, did you have any questions? Anything to contribute on this policy?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right, very good. So this is listed as discussion possible action. Are we ready to take an action tonight?
I move approval with the one change.
I have 2 changes.
Or 2 changes.
10 school days and 4 assignments are equivalent.
Okay.
Is that
I
correct?
thought it said 10 school days.
It does in another paragraph, but we can add it
It's in
there
one
also.
spot, but it doesn't say
okay.
10 school days
I
in
move
one spot.
approval with the 2 changes.
Yes, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, next item is yes.
This just came in, but it's a part of this.
Yes, it was a first by Roger, a second by Darren. Carried unanimously. All right.
So,
we now have a card.
we do have a card now. I would ask for the item we just voted on. I would ask the person who submitted the card to reach out to staff for the answer to your question.
The school site would be able to give them the specific directions.
So did you catch that? Reach out to the specific school site, and if there's a problem with you getting any answer, please reach out to the superintendent's office and they'll follow up with you.
All right, thank you. We are now on item F8, and this is first reading of recommended changes to Board Policy 5146, married, pregnant, and parenting students.
Good evening, Board. This is a revised Board Policy 5146 for married, pregnant, and parenting students. The recommendations are from CSBA as of July 2024. The last time we adopted this policy was in 2004, and you'll notice all of the bold has ed code or other codes behind it. So most of the revisions here, with the exception of that first paragraph, have to do with changes in legislation and getting us up to what state law is telling us we need to do, and federal.
Okay. All right. Who would like to start?
I noticed contradiction, I think, in the first paragraph. It says, provide instruction and services designed to educate about pregnancy prevention. But then on the second page, the entire pregnancy prevention program is stricken down.
Okay.
So, why don't we restore what's stricken down if we state we have to provide it in the first paragraph?
So which paragraphs?
Yeah.
Talking about first paragraph and then page 2, this one, and down.
Okay, page 2.
Then,
Talking about right here.
yeah.
We now have health requirements that discuss pregnancy prevention.
So why did we strike down then that paragraph on the first page?
What part on the first page are you wondering why we struck it out?
No, second page, we have stricken down the entire paragraph that's called Pregnancy Prevention Program on the second page.
Because we have health education now, so we now actually have it as a part of the curriculum, and it's not necessary to have it in our board policy about pregnant students. It's not something extra just for pregnant students. It's all students have health education, which includes pregnancy prevention.
So you're talking about health for high school and health 7, both of those programs?
Correct.
Also, the paragraph that's right before pregnancy prevention program on page 2 has emancipated minors stricken down. Why? Because it says students under the age of 18 who enter a valid marriage or establish a valid domestic partnership.
Because the language in the family code changed. So we're just aligning the language on our board policy to the language in that family code.
So there's no more emancipated students in the family code?
It's part of that definition. Basically, now we have the definition within the paragraph more clearly defined. So basically, students who are under the age of 18 who enter into marriage or who have a valid domestic partnership are emancipated minors. Right. If we only put emancipated minors, then we're not clearly defining what that group looks like in this case. I reread this over and over, this particular section, because I'm like, why are we doing this? I had the exact same question that you have, and then I was like, oh, that's basically, we're now clearly defining the definition in that particular place, and that's why they made the change to family code, because it was up for interpretation on what an emancipated minor might be.
So
in this case.
So the goal of this is benefiting the parents for their children. I assume that's what the idea is here. I'm trying to understand the law. We have people that are minors that have
married.
That has a valid marriage.
Marriage. Mm-hmm.
And they're going to our school.
Mm-hmm.
So they're being treated as they're adults.
Correct.
And they have those rights, and that is to benefit
them as adults.
Them as adults.
Yes. That's how I would
Okay.
read that,
Well,
because it's they've now become married, and once you're married, you're no longer a dependent of your, in that way, right? You have your own home, or you have your, that's how I interpret it. I'm not,
I'm
you know,
just trying to understand.
legally interpreting it for
kinda-
sure. I don't know that it has any,
It starts with like children, pregnancy,
Yes.
all this. So I'm assuming it's about families. I
yes,
don't know.
it's about their family unit.
Yeah.
I don't believe it has anything to do with their actual previous guardian before they were emancipated. And they
Okay.
became emancipated as soon as they got married.
So the idea is they've now entered into marriage, so they have their own family. So
Correct.
they are focusing on themselves.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So to make sure I understood what was going on. So now their parents are completely out of this equation.
So they're given all rights as if they're a student
Yeah.
who's 18 years or older.
So when they're in that situation, their parents don't have any guardianship, nothing over them. They're completely out of, like, gone, right?
Well,
I'm just trying to understand how this law or this policy, which is following the law,
I think we would probably have to dig or get more counsel on that, because technically when we have high school students who are 18 years old, it's not like we are currently cutting off the parents when they turn 18 and they're still in high school. I think that we would have to get more clarification if an issue arose where we needed to have intervention, and for some reason that would be my recommendation.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
something we need to know. This is kind of complicated.
Yeah.
It is.
So that's why I'm bringing it up. I just want to make sure I truly understood it.
Leslie, since you said that the reason we had to strike down that paragraph on the second page is that we already teach it in a health class for high school and middle school, then why do we still have the same sentence essentially in the first paragraph on the first page that says provide instruction and services designed to educate about pregnancy prevention? That's repeating what we had stricken down in the second page. Then do we have to strike that sentence as well?
I don't think we have to, and that was language that the board had asked to have in there previously, and it was important to the board that we have that piece. I left that, as I said, that first paragraph isn't Ed Code language. This is Ramona Unified language. I specifically left that in there, and in conversations with cabinet and the directors in this one, because we knew that our community does think the education of all of that is important. Generally, we left that there, but the details of what that pregnancy prevention program looks like, which is later stricken out, is really more appropriately identified under the health curriculum, because all students get it. And same thing here, like all students are going to get this instruction designed to educate about pregnancy prevention. We can strike it out of that first paragraph if the board wishes. That first paragraph is definitely not education code. It was just strategic, part of our discussion that we knew that was something that was important to the board and the community, and so we left it in.
So let me understand, if this is in some health courses, does it mean that those health courses contain all the details what was stricken down in this paragraph?
The health courses that we offer in Ramona Unified are adhering to all of the state laws and state standards. So they actually are going more than what we have there in the pregnancy prevention program.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm reading through the section on parental leave, and we just talked about independent study. So how does that relate to this? Do students that go on parental leave get credit for their classes? Do they need an independent study contract in order to do so?
No, so they wouldn't go on an independent study contract because it's more of a long-term. They actually have, where's the language right here?
There's a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they would obviously we'd have to have a meeting. Their attendance person at their school site would be a part of that. They're basically excused from the time they take parental leave until the time they come back. So if I'm a high school student and I take leave and I don't have assignments, I'm not earning graduation credits, but I'm not penalized. I'm not getting Fs in those classes as I go. I'm just kind of put on pause until I come back. And then once I come back, often we have students who are pregnant, and in this situation, we see them choose Future Bound. Not always, because we are not required, they're not required to go to that type of program, because we can and we are required by the state to provide all of those services on our comprehensive high school campus as well, even in middle school if we had a student who was at middle school. But it's almost as if, like, the best way I could describe it would be, we are hitting pause on your educational program at this moment when you have to leave school in order to, give birth. And then when you come back, where you are is where we take off from there. It's a lot.
Okay, so if a student is out of a semester for 8 weeks of that, do they finish the semester with full credit?
We would have to see how much of the semester they finished and what it looked like. It kind of would depend on if we are able to transition them in any way, or if they would get partial credit or not. Go to Montecito, get partial credit, and then come back. We'd have to, it's a case-by-case basis, really.
And we're talking about
babies don't
girls.
come on the semester.
Right. And we're talking about girls here.
Yes.
But I also know that baby bonding is a thing with the dads.
Absolutely.
So same thing applies?
You know what? I don't know.
It's a good question.
That's a really good question, because it says pregnant or parenting student. So I would assume that would mean yes.
And they would be eligible for home hospital, right? Would they not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, in the case of, like, if they were on bed rest or anything like that. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so parenting would I would say that would be like your father's, because you're not pregnant.
So 8 weeks.
Yes, I think so.
Could be baby bonding?
Yes.
So
it's all just the law.
Yeah, so two questions. The first one has to do with what is it? Page 4, the top, the last the first paragraph, the last sentence. Any proposed modification that would fundamentally alter the nature of the district's educational program.
I'm sorry, can you tell me where you are again?
Page 4 at the very top.
It starts at the bottom of the page and moves to the next.
Mine is different than yours, so that's where I'm
online.
Oh, it is.
Sorry, I'm looking online.
The school shall provide reasonable accommodations. That one?
It's accommodations.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's talking about if the proposed modification would fundamentally change the educational program. It's talking about that. So how I guess I don't understand what kind of modification would change the educational program. A modification is just like giving them a tool or or a strategy or something so they can be successful. So I guess I don't really understand what that sentence is.
Some examples of reasonable modifications.
So I would say that thank you, that would be one of the things I would say. Access to online or homebound education. We have everything in our Canvas LMS. That's most things in the LMS, so we have that opportunity for students. Any of these pieces right here would be acceptable if somebody was offering some kind of modification that was, I can't even think of something that would be, I don't know, but it would basically change. They wouldn't be meeting the course of study, or they wouldn't be meeting the standards of the state. Then we can't offer that modification.
Right. I get that.
Yeah, I think that's all it's
trying
saying.
to understand.
Yeah.
Why would there be anything proposed?
I can't think of something that would be so out there that would be proposed.
Okay.
Except
so
for
you're
hitting
saying,
pause and not getting the credit, which then you don't get the credit until you come
So
back.
the proposed part is not coming from us. It's coming from.
No, this is
the
all federal.
guardians.
This is all federal law right here.
Okay, and then the other thing is what. So this happens. the person is pregnant, or the persons, they're married, and they have a child. They're on our campus, they're students now. What if they, I've read all this, but what if they need to have medication with them? I don't see any place
You mean
in
because
here.
they're considered
No, what
adults?
What if the doctor prescribes medication and they need to have it on them? That's the only thing I don't see in here that's talked about.
They would have it with the nurse, just like any other student who has medication that they need to take at school. It would be with the school nurse, and then they would go up and take their medication.
Oh, so they wouldn't be able to have it on them?
No, I don't.
Yeah, we don't have kids carry EpiPens around. They have
Right.
to go to the nurse. Insulin has to go to the nurse.
Yeah, and the same thing, like when you make the point of like them being emancipated or they're 18 years old, even our 18-year-old high school students have to go to the nurse to get whatever medication they need, like their inhaler or whatever.
I'm just curious because these are now considered adults. So
Yeah.
I'm like, does that change things?
No.
That's basically what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, it doesn't change anything because right now by the time seniors hit the end of their senior year, we have quite a few that are 18 and are considered adults.
So
At that point, and they still have to go to the nurse.
the only thing that I see is I would probably just add something about that to make it crystal clear. That would be the only thing.
So this is discussion of possible action. Is anyone ready to take action?
I move approval.
Okay. As presented?
Did you make any changes?
Well,
Don't
the
think.
only thing I was suggesting is that we just have a statement that if, something about if you are required to take medication, that you will work directly with the school nurse or health
So
tech, whatever.
after that list of 1 through 10, it says a student who is pregnant or has a related condition shall have access to any services available to other students with temporary medical conditions. Does that work for that, or would you like something underneath that
I think
says
so.
and have access to?
Where are you?
It's after the 1 through 10 list under accommodations, the very next line after number 10.
Oh, okay, right down.
It's kind of hidden right there. A student who is pregnant or who has a related condition shall have access to any services available to other students with temporary medical conditions. So that would be, in my mind, that would be the nurse.
That works.
Okay.
Okay, so your motion is to approve as presented?
Yes, approve as presented, correct.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
That carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, next is item F9, and this is
First-
recommended changes to board policy 5.44.
4.1, and this is suspension and expulsion due process.
Yes. Our last board policy tonight from Education Services is 51441.1 pertaining to expulsion, suspensions, and due process. The changes to this board policy since 2019 have to do with getting us up to where we need to be for all of the new legislation. A big component of this has to do with, it has to do with actually just changing the different things that we're allowed and not allowed to do. This one is extremely important for passing. This is one of those items for FPM that is a requirement that we must provide to CDE as evidence that we have an updated suspension, expulsion, and due process policy.
Okay, so is there any of the language that has been inserted here, specified in bold, is any of it optional?
Yes. So up at the very top, in the very first paragraph, that strikeout and change is optional. The language, I'm just doing a real quick here. I think that's it. I guess technically the bold right underneath that, the very first bold where it says district shall enforce the rules concerning suspensions and expulsions and students fairly, consequently, equally in accordance with district non-discrimination policies is
maybe optional.
Maybe optional, but when I read it, it's not really.
Seems appropriate.
Yeah, seems appropriate, not really optional. So that would be the only thing that's actually optional in this case, because it's all updating ed code. And I don't believe, if I'm remembering right, that any penal codes were updated, just education code. I anticipated there being a question about those last bold paragraphs about sharing that outcome data related to suspensions and expulsions, and that does come to the board when we talk about the dashboard data, when we talk about suspensions and expulsions and all of that. So that's not a new practice for us. It's just new in ed code and being added to the policy. But we already do have to desegregate that information and have to do it by subgroup. We do that with our LCAP committee. We provide that information in a board presentation or in a board update. So it's not a new practice, it's just new in the policy itself. So it's not extra work on the superintendent or designee, and we do that already. And that's just to ensure fair practices and that there aren't certain groups that are being suspended more than other groups or anything like that.
Okay. Anyone have any questions about this language?
I had some notes that I made. For example, the paragraph, in the first paragraph, the language that's been added, it's, from what I see, is almost identical to what has been stricken. I wonder what was new.
It's just a change in, it's just wordsmithing it. We can go back to the old language. It's not required. It's just reading it and trying to make it more clear, and based on CSBA recommendations on how to provide that clarity.
So
Mm-hmm.
this has nothing to do with the new stuff, has to do with the old in here. So I just have a question.
Sure.
Where it talks about, it has on the first page, it lists 1 through 5. And number 4, it says, during, going to, or coming from a school-sponsored activity.
That's part of ed code.
Right.
Mhm.
So that means any school-sponsored activity, even if it's not our district, right?
Oh.
I want to make sure I understand this.
So if in the paragraph above 1 through 5, it says the student may be suspended or expelled only when his or her behavior is related to a school activity or school attendance occurring within any district school or another school district.
That's why, because...
Yeah, it's ed code.
Yeah, because you could, say our football team is at another school.
Yep.
And somebody shows up to watch that game, or say they're going to a game that our football team is not at. They would still be held accountable.
Yes.
I think that's not clear to students. Yeah, that's not clear to students, so, or, you know, yeah, or parents. So that, I think that's kind of significant. It doesn't even include, it doesn't say anything about other states, other countries. It could be anywhere, as long as it is considered another school.
So would a reasonable resolution for that be to put something about that in the student handbook?
I believe it's in parent notifications
Parent
already.
notifications, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's a very...
And we know that there's a long list of parent notifications in our, that parents don't read. Right. So in fact, Karina and I were just looking at the list of parent notifications before the board meeting, because I was like, we are supposed to notify parents of all of these pieces for pregnant students that's available to them. I'm like, I want to make sure that that's on our parent notification screen, and she pulled it up, and it was. Right. We do need to update it once this policy is updated to the new language of the new laws, just slightly, but that's a part of the requirement of law, is that we notify parents of what, and they get that in the parent notifications.
Okay. No, I just
it's
I
one
just
of those.
I thought it was kind of a significant
Yes.
thing, because I know that there are
There are
people
situations,
that are
yes.
not aware. They just think that, oh, it's just my school. I can do anything wherever I go.
And some even think on their way to and from school it doesn't matter, but
I've heard
they
that
do
too.
learn when they
Yeah.
come to admin hearing.
Okay, so this is discussion possible action. Is there anyone who would like to propose an action?
Okay, we have not finished.
Oh, okay. Yep. Go ahead.
There's two sentences that I think are very similar or maybe even identical. Sentence, page 2, third from the top. No students may be suspended for disruption or willful defiance except by teacher. So according to Ed Code 48900. Also, on the bottom of the same page, the very last sentence, no student shall be expelled solely for disruption or willful defiance. Ed Code 48900.
Yes.
So, do we need to keep both if they are saying the same
No,
thing?
we can strike that one at the bottom. That's just one I missed with the redundancy. Thanks for the catch.
Okay. Also,
Would that
what's
be acceptable before I strike through it?
It is to me. I saw the same thing, but figured,
Okay.
it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
it's on page 1 and 2, essentially 3 times.
What's on
Right.
page 1?
There are 3
Yeah, that's on page 1 as well.
It's just the ed code on 1 is different than the other 2.
The same Ed Code
But it's
paragraph.
kind of saying the same thing.
Actually, it repeats exactly word by word.
Would we like it
Sentence on
underneath the appropriate use of suspension authority, or would you like to keep it on where it is bolded? Either one can come out.
We'll keep where it's not bolded, probably.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
What's the Ed Code 48910, by the way? If you don't remember, it's okay. I can look it up.
I do not have it memorized. What? I know. So sorry.
Right.
So it's also on page 3, a vote to expel a student shall be taken in open session of a board meeting. That's really what we're supposed to do, discuss the student by the name in open board meeting?
Where-
About expulsion.
where
Doesn't
are
say
you?
by the name.
Page 3.
Right. Identified by number only.
By number.
Yes, that's what you do each time you expel
Right.
when you come back from closed. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But still, have we ever done it? Even by the number?
Yes.
Yes, you do it every time. You discuss it and the name in closed, and then you
Right.
come back out and report
And
in
do
open
this
So
is
that's
the
what the
decision.
report is?
Yes.
Okay. It says vote. We don't vote in open session. We only report.
You share that vote in open session.
That's not what this policy says.
That is true. It does not say that here.
No. It says vote to expel should be taken in open session of a board meeting. It doesn't say a report from the closed session of the vote that's been taken in the closed session.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're supposed to be doing this or it has to be changed and reflect what we're doing.
So, well, I guess a better way to do it is that a new change, and do we need to then?
It's
We
not
should
a new
find
change.
that out.
I'm gonna look it up right now just to make sure, because it's either a change that we
That's
need
a-
to do in practice, or
That's an
it's
old. This is an old phrase, so that's
correct.
Right. Exactly.
So while she's looking it up, I can't help but make a comment on page 2, items 1 through 6, where it says possessing a firearm which is not an imitation firearm. This is a ground for mandatory recommendation and mandatory expulsion. I hope we have, and this is for you, Brian, I hope we have the discretion to do that even though it's not mandatory as a board policy or district policy. If somebody brings a fake, authentic looking weapon, to me that is 100% eligible, and I would, in theory, right now not having it before me, support expulsion of that student. And the same would go for brandishing a knife at another person. It doesn't even have to be at another person. So to me, those are very restrictive statements, and if those are, and help me out, are those mandatory, but then we do have leeway for other items besides 1 through 6?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I'm going to have to get more input from legal because in the past, an imitation firearm that was real has been
Acted upon appropriately.
Yes.
Okay. I I have trouble, if it's the case that, yes, these are mandatory, and yes, we have board discretion via board policy, and I would ask that if that's the case, we update our board policy to make sure that we are in congruence
Can I?
as to what is mandatory or not, or
These are
acceptable for us.
mandatory.
These are mandatory,
Yes.
so we do have board discretion for an imitation firearm being brought onto the campus to treat it in a similar fashion.
So if an imitation firearm was brought onto campus, that student, depending on the circumstance and what was happening, right?
Sure.
Would go to an admin hearing with all of the evidence. That admin hearing panel would decide what that next course of action would be based on the student's background.
Would give a
and all that.
recommendation.
Well, if they decide to expel, it comes to the school board. If they don't decide to expel, it doesn't come to the school board. They are that first layer of the hearing process as a part of due process for the student. So the board would not see a student who is not up for expulsion and isn't going to you for expulsion.
Mr. Newman, you had something?
Well, I just think if you look at the next paragraph, that's the quasi that answers that question, where it says, for all other violations, they can have the discretion, but if expulsion is recommended, the board shall order if it meets one of those two findings.
Right.
You still have group 1 or 2. You can't just
decide.
Say imitation firearm, we can't expel. You can do that if it also meets 1 or 2.
Okay.
I think you're looking for that discretion.
Right. And then.
Not so much. I'm looking for,
Can you do it?
Well,
yes.
And if it meets 1 or 2, you can.
Okay.
To go back on the open session.
Yeah.
Our practice is wrong. The language in the board policy is correct.
Okay.
So we need to be voting on expulsions in
Right.
a public session, according to Ed Code that I just pulled up.
Right, thank you.
How long has this ed code been in place? It's for a long time, or it's something new? To vote in open session.
Well, this
We've
board
done it this way
policy
the
was
last 10 years.
last done in 2019 before my
Okay.
my time in this office, and I don't know what the changes were at that point. I would say that
It's probably old.
it's
Yeah.
well, if I'm looking at California legislative information right now, and I mean,
Roger, do you ever remember it being handled differently in your tenure on the board?
it looks like 1983 was the last time this was really.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you trying to date me?
No, not us. This is the code.
I'm just asking
This is
for-
the code, right? The code.
I don't remember doing it a different
Possible,
way.
but not the
And
case.
as long as I've been here, it's
Yeah.
been done this way. So
Yeah.
you just kind of, it just rolls over from whenever.
Right.
And
Well, this brought about an appropriate change for us.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna.
and maybe the idea, and maybe that's what we ask legal for too, is when you do the roll call of the vote, maybe that is sufficient in the public session, or maybe it is you have to decide your vote once you come out here, and there isn't a vote in there first.
Yeah.
So-
It seems like the language is you vote out here.
So can we find that out and bring this back?
So I just have a scenario, just so that I can understand how this policy is working. So say a 5th grader shows up to class, show and tell, and that 5th grader brings their paintball guns. How would that fit this policy?
It wouldn't.
Okay.
Because
some people would consider that a firearm.
Well,
Yeah.
look at the
So I'm just
definition,
saying.
firearm versus
know.
compressed air.
I know, but some people,
Yeah, I get it.
because you have pellet guns, that's
Oh, yeah,
compressed air,
that's compressed
and
air,
that can
right.
kill somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm just pointing
Yeah,
this
yeah.
out. I'm like, what are we really talking about? I just want-
And I think too, like, it comes down to, if you've got this seemingly innocent child who's like, oh, I'm so excited, I got a paintball gun for my
Yeah, I know,
birthday,
that's
I'm
what
gonna
I'm
bring it
saying.
into show and tell, right?
Yeah,
like
it's like-
all that's why we have the admin hearing. That's why we have, because sometimes you have to bring them no matter what.
Right.
And then you have to hear what the situation was. You have to look at their history. You have to do all of these things.
I think intent
And-
matters.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but in that particular scenario, this particular board policy isn't where we would go with that.
Okay. Just want to make sure I.
Common sense governing.
Okay. So what I
Well,
have,
because some districts have zero tolerance on anything. If it looks like a gun, it's a gun kind of attitude, right?
what I have is the strikeout of just the redundant, no student may be suspended for disruption or willful defiance statement twice.
There are two redundancies, yes.
But we kept it on page 1 underneath appropriate use of
Yeah,
suspension
the old,
authority.
the
Yeah.
old one, so.
Thank you
yeah.
for that catch.
And
I'm
you
not
s-
sure how the number of people who reviewed this didn't catch that, but we didn't, so thank you.
And also, in the last paragraph, on the last page, you said you have already been disaggregating data by student groups.
Actually, the state of California is so kind to do it for us using all of our uploads, and they do it on the California dashboard.
Then if we have been doing it already, why put it in the policy?
Because it's required of Ed Code.
That it's in the policy? Or it's required to be done?
It's required to be done,
Yeah.
and it's now a part of the policy that, I'm sorry, I have something in my eye, by CSBA. So this is one of those things, like with FPM right now, that they're ensuring that we have all of the required language in the policy, which basically means we need to make sure we are clear in our policy on all of the education code that we have to adhere to when it comes to suspensions, expulsions, and due process. So that's a part of that. They'll be looking for all of the things on that instrument for FPM, and this is one of those things. And that's there to ensure that we are telling the board what our suspensions look like and what those groups are and all of those pieces. And as you can read on that very bottom line, that we're doing it and paying attention for our LCAP. All what we're already doing, but we do have to put it in policy because maybe the next cabinet wouldn't be bringing the dashboard for a presentation, and so we definitely need to make sure that's there in policy and people who replace us know that that's what they have to do.
Just one thing on that statement, no student may be suspended for disruption of willful defiance, but it says except by a teacher pursuant to this ed code.
Right.
So if we could know what that is, that'd be really.
That's why I was saying it looks like we probably need to bring this back.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe we actually, instead of saying
We can't.
pursuant to that, we actually say why.
Oh.
So we need to, if there's
All
something.
right, so we better look it up.
And we can re-agendize it after we do this.
Because if they
necessary.
quote so many
Yeah, we
parts
can
of the
we
ed
can always
code.
come back to it.
So if they refer to so many ed codes, why just to put another piece of ed code in it? If it's referring to that one. So what is it? So
Right.
people know.
Which one are you?
That's
The willful defiance.
8910.
Yeah.
It says
48910?
yeah. Except by teacher pursuant to ed code article 48910.
A teacher may suspend a pupil from any class for the day of suspension and the day following. A teacher shall immediately report the suspension to the principal. So in this case, where we're talking about is they're not suspended from school, they're suspended and removed from their own classroom. Though, in our counts for suspension, that counts towards suspension counts for the state. Anytime a student is removed from their learning environment, it counts as a suspension, even if a teacher does it. So in this case, right, no student may be suspended for disruption or willful defiance except for by a teacher. So you can't suspend and send a kid home for willful defiance.
Right.
A teacher may suspend them from their classroom.
That
Which
makes
is what I
sense.
thought it was, but I wanted to make sure for ed code
Yeah,
purposes.
because if you have a kid that's just out of control. And you
Correct,
can't
and you need
teach,
to remove them for a minute, right.
Right.
And that still counts as a suspension.
Okay.
So can you please explain what does it mean? I know it's required by the ed code, but what does it does the sentence mean? The last paragraph on the last page, the board shall address and any identify disparities in the imposition of student discipline. What that's supposed to mean? What disparities in imposition of student discipline?
So if we had a student group who was having more incidents of discipline than another group, the board would be asking questions about why do we have more suspensions or more expulsions happening with this student group over this student group.
But we keep every student equal under the law, so we don't punish somebody more or less, some group, because they belong to some group.
You shouldn't
That's
be
irrelevant.
correct. Yes, you shouldn't be correct, and that's why this is here. So that if a district, not ours, we'll just go with that, not in Ramona, but if a district had a disproportionate number of students who were getting suspended or expelled from school, then it's the board's responsibility to go, if we weren't already drawing your attention. Most of the time we draw we draw attention to blemishes and to celebrations. But if we weren't already drawing that attention, then the board would be like, wait a minute, why at whatever school or why in our district do these students, I'll use foster youth because that's an easy group, right? Foster youth. Why is foster youth 100% more suspensions than, English learners or whatever it might be? And then we would dig. So we have done this before because we had a subgroup, 2 armor races, a few years back before I was in this position, who had a very high suspension rate. And we were like, what is going on? Why is this group? We went and pulled every single discipline record for every single student, and we were like, yep, that was warranted. Yes, that was warranted. Yes, that was warranted, right? They had drugs on campus. They had whatever it was, but we had to dig into that data and find out and make sure we weren't
profiling
a student or doing something towards a certain group of students that we shouldn't have been doing. And every single disciplinary action that was accounted for was, we're talking stealing golf carts, we were looking at drugs on campus, there was all kinds of things, and it was like, yes, 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 and there was nothing that was, that was not appropriate.
Yeah, because everyone is held to the same standard. We're not punishing students based on what group they belong to.
Correct.
Anyway, so it's irrelevant for our district.
I think this is just saying that we need to always be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And make sure.
Yes.
Right? That all students are being
It's
treated
making
fairly.
sure we're never
Right.
doing that. Yes.
Right. Yes? Saw that mic come down.
I'm ready to make a motion. If nobody
Okay.
else has any further discussion.
Go for it.
I will move that we approve this board policy with the discussed change of removing redundancies, otherwise as is. I think that's it.
I second.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Any more conversation? Dan, you've been really quiet.
I have been very quiet.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, please.
That, I don't know if you look at other school board agendas in other places, but they literally put all these policies on consent and never talk about them.
Wow.
It's really unfortunate to me that happens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the conversation on these topics. We are now in section G, Human Resources. G2 is approval of Uniform Complaint Quarterly Report, Williams Case Complaints.
Whereas the board, as is our practice, we brought forward the results regarding the quarterly report. We have 0 Williams case complaints during the reporting period.
Thank you. This is action.
I'll make a motion to accept this report.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is unanimous. All right, H2 was pulled. It is purchase orders processed September 16th through October 15th, 2024.
I just had a suggestion, maybe to include in the table of those expenses, include the funding source, because there might be some misunderstanding where the money is coming from. So for transparency purpose, for example, a site and department has the same information as at the end of the next column. For example, site department RHS, very first line, and then Inc. cartridges RHS again. So maybe we can replace either content of the column that's site department right now and put it like funding source, for example, for more transparency, or maybe add funding source instead of RHS again, like with the school site at the end, in the second place I mentioned.
I'm in agreement to that, because if you look at the PO reference, it's already listing the site department on every single one of them.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we have the site and department, but we don't necessarily have funding source
So
on this page.
would funding source define your request for funding source?
Okay.
General fund?
General
this
fund, in your
Okay.
restricted fund, special education fund, I don't know what other funds are there. For example, so it doesn't look like, on the last page of the expenses, it doesn't look like we're spending $10,000 on world's finest chocolate, for example.
So I have a
From
question.
general fund.
ASB.
For-
Okay,
for
it doesn't
Brian.
say so in ASB. ASB,
Right.
for example, would be nice.
Is this a request that can be done without a terrible burden on staff?
Yeah, and I'll defer to Tori, because they're the ones that deal with these codes within the system, so.
Thank you, Dr. Thurman. Actually, in order to put that information, it would potentially be difficult because there can be multiple funding sources for one PO. For instance, let's say we're ordering something for all of the school sites, and one school site is paying for it with donations, and another one's paying for it with lottery funds, and it's paying for multiple sites. You would have or if they were paying for it even with multiple funding sources, we would have to list every potential resource that it could be coming from. That's not something that I believe a query from PeopleSoft can easily pull for us, whereas there is a query in PeopleSoft that pulls all of this information. And if we had to go PO by PO, that would take a very long time.
Because it only lists one site per purchase. It doesn't cite multiple sites. It doesn't list multiple sites per one.
Well, I started to correct myself after saying that, because yes, typically there is funding sources, especially if, donations is paying for a part of the cost as well as a different site budget. I can explore these options, but it could be problematic if there isn't something that can easily identify that in an already available query from our accounting software.
Yeah, because I understand there's a need in the community for more transparency where the money is coming from for certain expenses, and create sometimes misunderstandings.
I
What
agree.
we're spending money on and where from what funds.
I can see about doing that.
Yeah, would for the ones that aren't multiple resource funded, could we, I don't know, I assume it would probably be in the PO reference field there that we could add,
I'll have
or have
to.
a code or a legend maybe of something that,
What I propose doing is perhaps putting another column here for funding source and seeing if I can tie it perhaps to a resource, but I will give the board some options. How about we run a sample and I put a sample in a board update and I get feedback so that I can see what you guys what might work and what might not work. Does that sound good?
Yeah. How often does it happen that an item is purchased from multiple funds? Is it often? Maybe just at least?
I'm
Is it
not sure.
common?
I don't
Okay.
typically see each and every one, so I can't speak to it, but I can try and pull something and create something and see if that is what you would like going forward.
Thank you. The similar thing for the item H3. On the top, it says total for fund, number such and such. Total for fund, number such and such. Would it be possible? And then the next column is a long blank space between the dollar sign and the actual number. So there's maybe space to put the name of that fund somewhere. For example, what's fund 0100? Is the general fund? Is it ASB? Is it special education? It's something else.
Should we, since they're
let-
both action, should we?
We will.
Approve the one?
We will.
Just wanna make sure.
And
Yeah.
all those
Thank
funds, I have no idea what they are. There's no legend. For example, I don't know what we spent the money on.
Well, there is a legend at the top with the totals. Maybe that's where we
Totals.
could have a little bit more
Yeah.
description.
Yeah,
I
that's.
can
would
tell
that
you
work?
what each of the fund numbers
Mhm.
represents. I can absolutely modify
Yeah,
that for you.
that would be easy to just add to the table, I think, at the top.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That yes, but also when we go back to purchases, yeah.
Yeah.
If possible.
Okay, so item H2, which is purchase orders, was pulled from consent, so we do need to take action on that.
I move approval with suggested changes if possible.
Well, so this is approving the purchase orders.
That's what I'm saying.
So-
With the changes in formatting if possible.
So this is approving what we see here tonight.
That's what I just
We
did.
can ask for changes to a future report, but it wouldn't be part of approving this report.
I understand that. That's why I said if
Okay, am
possible.
I misunderstanding?
But for clarification, they've been processed.
Right.
Yeah.
We're approving the review of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Maya. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, that's unanimous. All right, and then H3 was also pulled from consent.
Same thing. I move approval for that one.
Thank you.
And if we can add headers or whatever, that's great.
Names added to the
Absolutely.
fund numbers somewhere.
Do we have a second?
I will second that too.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Okay, thank you for exploring those additions to the formatting. Okay, our next item, H4, reading of proposed board policy 3230, federal grant funds.
Good evening, President Perfect and board members. Tonight, we present Board Policy 3230 for its first reading and possible approval. This is a new policy for Ramona Unified. Adopting this policy is essential to meet federal program monitoring requirements. It has been reviewed by the SLIS and MTSS departments, as well as Cabinet, and a copy was included in last week's board update for your review.
Thank you. Any questions? Action?
I'll move approval as written.
Thank you.
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain because I haven't had enough time to really
Okay.
digest it, and especially because we now have a new administration and there are questions about the Department of Education and how federal grants would actually be applied. I'm not sure what we're really supposed to do. This is my suggestion.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable approving this and then looking at it as things change to see what we might need to adjust. That motion carries 4-1. That one being an abstention. Okay. All right, we are now on item H5, and this is public hearing to consider presentation and adoption of resolution number 2024-2025-07, establishing developer fee rates. Anybody want to give a little intro to this?
I can do that.
Thank you.
The district contracted with Wolpert Incorporated to conduct a school fee justification study. Wolpert determined that many of our portables are well past their useful life, thus causing a shortage of classroom units that are used in the calculations to determine our allowable developer fee rates that we can charge. This this developer fee justification report has the new proposed rates on page 26 and 27 and allow us to, if we accept the rates as recommended in this report, that allows us to receive full state matching of funds if we present projects to the state for reimbursement with state facility funds.
Okay, so is there a chart here where we can see?
Yes, it's actually H6 because this is the public
Okay.
hearing on H5, and the item H6 is approval of the resolution for the new fees.
Okay.
Don,
Thank you.
What was your question going to be
Yeah.
on the chart?
I would like to see what the rates currently are, what the proposed increase, because I assume that this adjustment is an increase, not a decrease,
It's an increase.
right? And what the impact would be on the school district maybe in a year.
The reason I asked you to clarify is because I'm interested in the same.
Yes.
Let me pull up the current rates that we charge.
Okay.
I don't have the.
I'm going to give you a minute to do that because technically we're on the public hearing section,
Okay,
so I will
perfect.
open that public hearing, take any comments then, and we'll circle back, all right?
We
Okay.
do have one speaker.
I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Public hearing on this item is now open. This is the time for anyone to come forward with or without a card. We'll take the cards first.
So there is one card from a community member on this, and it is Jay Dyer.
Good evening, and please speak into the microphone so that it's in the record.
Will it speak in if I'm there?
Karine, will it work if he, no, you'll need to hold it. Thank you.
Okay. The study supporting an increase in developer fees states that the district facilities are currently under capacity by about 1,000 students. It also states that by 2050, the district may gain 500 student enrollments, but will continue to be under capacity by 500 students. If this is true, increased developer fees for new space should not be needed. Therefore, this current fee increase appears to be primarily about facility maintenance. Maintenance should be planned for and covered by the district's $85 million budget. Increasing fees and taxes on residents should not be the go-to response to cover maintenance responsibilities. The study seems optimistic about enrollment increases in the future. However, inaccurate assumptions about enrollment increases are what put the district in severe financial difficulty several years ago. Enrollments have been decreasing, and the reason for the decrease is not going to go away anytime soon. Parents are having fewer kids, and unwise priorities are causing more parents to choose private school options for their children. Decreasing enrollments should result in a district needing less money and fewer buildings in the future. I question the objectivity of the data used that found a nexus between homes where no children attend district schools and school facilities. And I also question the objectivity of the data used to show a nexus between school facilities and warehouses, storage facilities, agricultural businesses, office spaces, and other private businesses. I think it's a bit of a stretch to believe these types of buildings have such a negative impact on school facilities that they necessitate the payment of additional fees or taxes to the district, because without a nexus, these fees are not justified. The message sent by the recent rejection of the bond measure was that we do not want our housing costs increase. And 9 days after the vote, we're sitting here talking about increasing our housing costs. Developer fees on businesses result in higher prices for products and services sold by those businesses. The board should be hesitant to support measures that make things more expensive for residents. And just because fees can be raised doesn't mean that they should be. And I'm asking you to please consider opposing these increased developer fees.
Thank you. Do we have any other cards?
No.
Do we have anyone that would like to speak openly during this public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the hearing. Hearing is now closed. So we will move on to item H6, and that's approval of resolution 2024-2025-07, establishing developer fee rates. This is an action item. So to my question, maybe we know now, I see that the proposed rate seems to be $5.17 per square foot for residential construction.
That is correct.
And 84 cents per square foot for commercial industrial construction.
That is correct.
What are the rates currently?
The rates for residential are currently $4.08 per square foot. The commercial rates are $0.66 per square foot, and agricultural or indoor construction is currently $0.563 per square foot.
Okay. When was the last time we increased our rates?
Our rates last went into effect for commercial and residential new construction. Those rates became effective as of August 9th, 2021. The agricultural indoor construction rate went into effect December 10th of 2022.
So those rates going into effect, does that mean that they were increased at that time, or did we affirm those rates which may have been consistent with some previous period?
Approving an increase in developer fees so there was an increase in the commercial and residential new construction, and approving an addition of developer fees for indoor agricultural projects became effective December 10th.
Yeah,
So
that
since
was new.
2020, we have increased all of our fees already at some point.
Since 2021.
2021.
Yes.
Don, if I remember correctly, we had a robust conversation about this.
We always
And-
do if I'm
right?
here.
And
Right.
we chose to make an increase that was not the maximum increase allowed by state statute.
Right.
I think we chose a step. I don't remember the details.
Seems
but,
right.
I think it was a conversation that says, okay.
Like we compromised?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think we came to consensus that we would all support an increase, but not the maximum increase. So,
So Tori, hopefully Brian prepped you that I would have some questions. How much do we usually collect in developer fees? If you have the breakdown, residential and commercial, industrial and ag, that's fine. If you just have a total, that's fine too.
I don't have a breakdown.
That's fine.
I'm so sorry.
No
Can I
problem.
get that for you?
No, not right now. Just the total's okay.
It varies per year depending on
What
what's being
construction
built,
happens, right?
And I
I have the
apologize,
totals
I-
from 22-23 and 23-24
Oh, perfect.
that you provided earlier.
Thank you.
For me, the 22-23 we collected 238,000 in developer fees, and 23-24 we're at 487,000. And I would just caution the board with Tori's statement there regarding developer fees. If we are not charging the amount allowable, it has the ability to impact matching dollars, and also from my own personal experience, if a development comes to town, they're going to build 1,000 homes, which statistically does increase the students in the school. If we haven't been acquiring the max rate prior to that, it inhibits our ability to charge an appropriate rate or a higher rate for a development that might be coming to town.
I understand.
Okay.
So there's people much better at math than I am in the room, but if we collected 238,000, did you say, in residential developer fees for the past year?
All developer fees.
Oh, in all developer fees. And if that was done at about $4 per square foot, are we talking about 50,000 roughly square feet of development that was taxed?
I don't have the figure in front of me.
Okay,
We just
but
get
just
the
like super round
county
numbers.
gives a tax bill that they come to us
So
with.
just
Yeah.
going one step further than that, we might be talking about a $50,000 difference in income to the school district for a year, if we increased it by about $1.
Yeah.
Just to
I
try
see where
and
you're
get an
coming
idea,
from.
right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I remember one of the other questions that we used to make our decision was, what are similar school districts charging in comparison to ours? I remember we had that data of it. I think we asked for it and brought it back to a
Probably.
future meeting.
It is a pet topic of mine.
Yeah.
so- right.
So, Don,
We can bring that to you.
if you would permit me, I would like to compile board questions and push this to
Next month?
next month,
Month
where we
after?
can have, we have a very comprehensive report.
We do.
But we also have questions that are not fair to drop on staff tonight. If
Thank
we
you.
could give them a month
Yeah.
to retool.
Fortunately, Brian had my questions ahead and did
Okay.
get that information,
Yeah, yeah.
but yes.
But this conversation sparks
Right.
more questions.
It does. I'll share my opinion, and that is that I am, for the most part, disinclined to increase tax on development here because we would like to entice developers to come here. There's some other taxes involved with developing here in our community that make development more costly than it might be somewhere else. And that is by design, and we can talk about climate change and controlling emissions and forcing development into more urban areas and penalizing more rural communities like ours that the county does with some of their transportation impact fees and those kinds of things, right? Where Dan and I dabble somewhere else in town as volunteers really digging into this stuff. So in order to entice development to our community in a positive way, because we would like to have housing for my kids and yours to buy someday, it seems to me keeping taxes low is a good thing. Development in our community, particularly residential development, brings us students, right? And so if we make it hard for developers, then we lose out on the potential to increase our student enrollment in our school district. So
Yeah, I still question also the validity of the report. So I did look at the numbers, and there are some false premises in the report. There are some numbers that don't match up. For example, besides the fact that we are proposing to increase the taxes by about 28%, so jump from 4.08 to 5.17 is a 27% increase that goes both for residential and commercial. Also, the report is based on the premise that's actually false for our district. It automatically assumes that more construction means more children in the district. In fact, the opposite has been the case for our district. There has been some new construction the past 20 years, but the enrollment dropped by 2,000 students. So what it means that not automatically new construction means new student. Why? I think because construction becomes more expensive. So instead of young families that move in, probably older families move in because we don't have less residents. We have at least the same number of residents or more with new construction. It means maybe retired people move in who don't have kids. So I don't know where they got this information or this data from Sandag that this particular, for our district, maybe general somewhere else, that's true, but for our district it hasn't been correct that whatever number of, and how did they know that many housing units are going to be built by 2050? That's 20, 30 years from now. That's such a number that nobody knows. Also, yes, we are under capacity, but this report, what it states that new construction brings a new student which needs new spaces and new classrooms to house them. Also, the same it says in the resolution that overcrowded rooms or overcrowding and sites and also sites need for new rooms to house new students, which is in fact, like the speaker said, we are under capacity even by 2050, even if all those 500 students materialize, which we may still continue to actually lose enrollment. But if they do materialize, we still are going to be under capacity by 50% because we do have space. I understand we need to modernize, but the premise of this report and the premise of resolution is not to modernize the existing facilities. It says we're going to get new students and we need new construction for them where we may not get them.
Okay, so heard. And I agree with some of what you said, although, yes, typically residential construction will bring more students. We haven't had a lot of residential construction here in our community since the last economy bust in 2008 or so. And when it comes to our capacity, I've had some conversations with Brian about that because, yes, to me, especially in looking at that bond, right, Do we have crowded facilities? Well, do we have extra spaces? Our enrollment in the time that I have been on this board dropped from, I think, 7,400 students to our current about 5,000 students. So you would think that we have a lot of extra space around. There's got to be classrooms sitting empty and spaces, right? But we've had some other things happen in that time, particularly about class size and the age of our students. So now we have lots of classrooms with little kids that have fewer students in them, and our elementary class size has changed. I know since my twins came through, we had much bigger class sizes at certain grades than what we do now. So when we reduce class sizes, that means more classrooms, not necessarily creating vacancies. So it's a complicated thing to look at, and I know that staff has been evaluating some of our space to find out how spaces are being used. That's a lot more than what this is talking about, but it is an interesting topic.
That means also this report is incorrect about saying we're over capacity.
Right.
Under capacity, pardon me. And so many numbers. Actually, I was expecting the company who made this report to be here, because I was looking at some tables and they are talking about some numbers in the text, for example, on page 3. But then you look at the table and the table doesn't contain those numbers. The numbers are different. That's the case on page 3. Pardon me, ES3, page ES. Okay, further.
So Don, for the sake of this conversation, can I make a suggestion?
Page 5.
Yes.
More tables.
If the board agrees, can we push this to a future meeting and give board members 2 weeks to submit their questions that they would like to have addressed at the next meeting, that were really brought up as a result of this conversation, to staff, so they would have 2 weeks to prepare
for our next meeting.
The next meeting.
Sure.
And then we can also have a meaningful discussion about the report itself. And if
Right.
you have questions or take umbrage with specifics in the report, please give staff some notice so that they can address them then also.
Does that work for you, Maya?
Yeah, and table on page 2 is completely messed up, and some other tables messed up.
Okay.
They talk about some numbers.
So maybe jot down some notes about that and work with Brian and Tori possibly, and see if we can get down to the bottom of this. Before we do move on, just for information, have we used this firm before, the one that prepared this report?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'd just like to say something that, since I'm been on the board for a long time, I know the history of this, and we have repeatedly, early on, chose more than once not to increase at all. But it really didn't hurt us because we were not building anything. So it didn't really have any negative impact. But our schools are, in really bad condition. Our schools are, some of them are so behind the times when it comes to what is currently going on in industry. We're just completely outdated. So I'm like, my personal opinion is that if we don't do something with our schools, which our budget can certainly not build a school, the entire budget that we have, we could build one school, but then we can't run our schools. The state does not provide money for schools to build them.
Okay.
That doesn't work that way. So in my opinion, the developer fees are increasing them since we haven't done it forever, and when we do it, it's just a small amount. Increasing it is really not that much at all. It really doesn't matter. And I haven't had a chance to speak, so please let me speak.
Absolutely.
Okay? We don't need to rush the meeting. That's not that important. I think that for those that feel like it's important to hold fast and have this conservative fiscal idea, I agree, that's important. But at the same time, if it's at the detriment to our students and their ability to have higher education being taught to them, then it's not worth the trade-off. And I know we're talking about a small amount of money here. Okay? But we really need to consider. We've done multiple bonds. They never pass in this community. And I know this community values education. So something's got to change. And the reason that I think we need to support this is because we need to use our reimbursement dollars, which is like a grant, and we cannot get the money from the reimbursement dollars unless we actually do this. We will be hamstringing ourselves again, and that would be an absolute mistake to do that. Why would we do that? Why would we shortchange our students? And that's what we would be doing. I think it's an absolute mistake not to move forward on it.
Good?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Nope, that's fine. Does anyone else want to add to this conversation? It seems like we will be seeing this again in the future.
So I'll make a closing comment, and I guess it's a rhetorical question. Do developers not come to Ramona because our fees, or do they choose to come to Ramona, yes or no, because our fees are better or higher, lower or higher? I don't think that is a factor when they are looking at a development. I think they try to stay away from the county because of the bureaucratic nightmare that it is to build in the county. They can go to a city and work much easier with city officials who have an entire desk to smooth out development. Rhetorical commentary only.
Yes. Tori, how quickly would new fees be implemented should the board decide to make a change?
If the board made a change tonight, they would become effective January 13th of 2025.
And so that would be for any project that didn't already get their county permits fully complete? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So anything that's in the pipeline already, like grading permits and such, done?
I don't know about the whole permit process, but I believe if they've already pulled permits and they come before January 13th, they would get the $4.08 or the 66-cent rate. They wouldn't, it's anything pulled, I believe, on or after that date. Or, even if they pulled it and they didn't get here until January 13th, that's when that rate goes up.
Okay.
And typically districts will see an influx in that time window between when a new rate has been approved but hasn't yet gone into effect. You see an influx of permits coming in and being paid.
Okay. Okay. So would anyone like to take action on this at this time, or should we see it again? If I don't see any action, then we will move on. Seeing none, moving on. Okay, our next one is H7, and this is approval of ASB budgets for school sites for the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you, board members. Every year we have to bring before you the Associated Student Body Program budgets for every school site, and these budgets are overseen with assistance from the district's finance department, and they have reviewed these and they are here for your approval this evening for the 24-25 school year.
Thank you.
I move approval, but when we have a second, I have questions.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just have questions with the way that the form is laid out, because it first says what the income is, and the income says 24 to 25, then it says the expenditures 24 to 25. I mean, is the way that this is being said is that this is the income that they're going to make or that they actually have, and then this is the expenditures that they're going to expend, or did they actually spend this money? It's a little confusing to me, because then it says also, they have a beginning balance. So I wasn't really sure what it actually
These are their budgets for the year, so this is what they anticipate to do this year, this school year. So the beginning balance is the ending balance for where they ended as of June 30th, 2024, and this is just like our fiscal year. So it's July 1.
Okay, so this is literally a proposal. It was just kind of weird
Yes.
having it say expenditures.
I had the same question because I was wondering how you can project to the dollar amount of fundraiser, or
Yeah,
something
these are projections of what they anticipate that they're gonna hold these events and these fundraisers, and they anticipate bringing in these amount of funds, and they anticipate spending these amount of dollars on these items.
And donations are also unpredictable as well.
Yes.
But the income, they actually have that, right? Or they're
No,
expecting
this
to
is what they
receive.
are anticipating to bring in for this school year.
The bank balance they should actually have.
Yes. Just like our budget every year that you adopt in June, we have what the beginning balance in theory should be, and then this is their actual, what it is. And then that's what, the income is what they anticipate to bring in this year, and the expenditures are what they intend or expect to expend.
I just wanted to make sure. So it's a it's a proposal.
Yes.
Got it.
I think Mount Woodson, they're still in the last year, so we have to, before we vote, have to make this correction that Mount Woodson income and expenditures are for 24-25, not for 23-24.
I believe those two
Or that's supposed to be like
items have the wrong year, because at the very top it says 24-25 for Mount Woodson. I think that those two fields just got, were not updated with the correct year.
Can I make a request? I don't
Yes.
know, I mean, maybe it's, so if you look at Hanson and you go to James Duke and you just kind of move along,
Mhm.
by the time you get to, where did it go? It says OPMS Club Band. They now say projected.
Right.
If we could just have them all say projected,
Of course,
that would be really helpful,
absolutely.
because the forms are different.
Yes, it is different. I will absolutely make sure that there is a uniform form used, and that they all, going forward, say projected income and projected expenditures.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that, or I guess I should ask the question, are these included in our annual audit process?
Yes.
Okay.
They absolutely are audited.
And that's fairly new, right?
No. I've been experiencing.
In our district?
I can't speak for Ramona, but I can speak throughout my career so far. Every year ASB has been audited, and I was at a K-8 district before
Okay.
here with much smaller.
Yeah, I only remember seeing these about the last 2 or 3 years, coming to the board. And it was, I think it was,
This may
remember
be a new
correctly-
requirement for you to approve these.
okay.
Honestly, I was not familiar with this until this process, until I came to Ramona. So that it could be very well a different requirement now.
Okay.
Especially because there's high school ASBs involved. I can get back to you on that and find out if there's a legal requirement for that, or if that's something that our auditors in the past recommended, and so we started to put in practice.
And to be honest with you, that's not important. I'm just pleased that they're coming to us, especially if they're part of the audit. I mean, if you look at the high school ASB, they've got a $430,000 budget.
Mhm.
That needs to be audited, and that needs to be approved by the board.
It is absolutely audited by the auditors.
Thank you.
Okay, so we did have a motion to approve and a second, some conversation.
And
Are
just
we- Yes.
one more thing,
Mhm.
there's a few of the forms that are not completely filled out. So OPMS band, OPMS NJHS, and OPMS web, OPMS OPT, and let me see. So they need to be, the forms need to be completed.
So those are their clubs, right?
Yeah, but just
Okay.
for their own sake, because they don't have total expenditures, they don't
I
have
don't think
projected
they're,
imbalance.
I don't think they're projecting to expend anything this year, and that's why, for instance, OPT, that's why the projected expenditures are zero, is because I don't believe they are planning to expend any funds this school year.
But they should still have total projected expenditures, zero, projected in.
Oh, I
in
see, the
year
projected
balance.
ending year balance is blank.
Yeah, they don't have anything.
Right.
Yes, that absolutely should be there.
And there's some inconsistencies from one school to another and some date issues, you know, a little bit here and there.
That's
Yeah.
all, I just,
Yeah.
just so we have it consistent, that's all.
Right, so, I'm gonna go ahead and call the question, and that is approving what we have before us tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
That carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. All right, our next item is H8, and that is rejection of all bids for outdoor video display scoreboard for RHS Stadium, project bid number 2025-02. So what happened here?
Governing Board, the district solicited informal bids for the manufacturing and installation of a video display scoreboard for Ramona High School Stadium. In response, only one bid was submitted by Western Sign and Awning. The district recommends rejection of all bids for the outdoor video display scoreboard project bid number 2025-02.
Is that because we didn't get three?
We can't show a competitive bid process because we only received one response.
Okay.
So what's our anticipated budget for this project?
This project is utilizing the neighborhood reinvestment grant funds that we received, I can't recall what year, maybe 2021, and we have $200,000.
So what is our threshold to submit a formal bid process? So I guess my question is for a $200,000 project, why did we use the informal process versus the formal process?
Because the formal process, I believe, is $220,000, something like that.
Okay.
It's right around there. I don't have the exact
Can we get
dollar
that
amount.
information,
Mhm.
Brian, in a future?
Of course.
Yeah.
And there was some concerns with what could be done based on the project scope, so we're going to be revisiting that before we put this out for bid again.
Okay.
Can the money be spent on something else?
No, I don't think it's been spent
No,
yet.
it can't be. It's specific for this project.
The time frame when it has to be done?
It needs to be spent by April
Okay,
2025.
there's time.
Okay. So was scoreboard, it sounds like you're still figuring it out. Was scoreboard the only thing that we could do with those funds? Is that what we
It is-
applied for?
It was applied for two items, and that was visitor bleacher replacement and a scoreboard. And the visitor bleacher replacement far exceeds the amount of the grant. I mean, by many, many times.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So this is an action item.
Go ahead.
I move to approve.
Reject.
Reject.
Which is approving a rejection.
Approve the rejection, okay?
Well, that's a lot, brother.
That's what I meant.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
That carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. H9, approval of acceptance of gifts.
I move to bifurcate the the entire list from 2 items that are related to the care closet. Propose to vote on them separately, bifurcate them from the rest of the list.
Do we have a second? Okay, I don't see a second to that. So this item is approval of acceptance of gifts, and the list is lengthy. Thank you very much to the community and the donors that are here. Tori, did you want to introduce this item?
Absolutely. Thank you, President. Perfect. I'm pleased to say that we have an abundance of gifts to report this month. Multiple school sites and specific programs received monetary gifts or donated items. It is the district's recommendation that the board approve the acceptance of the gifts as listed in item H9.
Okay.
So I move approval as is, but I have a question.
Yes?
I'll second his motion.
Okay.
Have some, can we have some discussion?
I have questions about, okay, so we put the value, the amount. So the checks are very obvious how much those are. And then we go down and we have, let's see here, like the women's golf, it says unknown. And then down here it's like we have Palomar College, Sharp Healthcare, and they're listing these items.
Yes.
Those so unknown, but this one, which is Marcy Hayes, and it says 15,000. Is that a check on top of those items, or is that the value of those items? Just so I understand what it is. I wasn't exactly sure.
So I see that the construction of the wall and the door in the RHS library is part of that amount. So Tori, is that primarily a check that was provided to the district, or the value of services that were hired? What is
Actually, with regards to the Marcy Hayes one, the $15,000 pertains to the amount of cost that was paid for the installation of the construction of the wall and door for the care closet. And as for the clothing, shoes, and all of the other items, we don't know the amount. We can't put a monetary value on it because I was just told these are the items that were donated. I don't know how much clothing. I don't know how much food. I don't know to put, and we never got a value. And same with the Sun Valley Women's Golf and the used bag and clubs. We ask for, and same with the Palomar College and the Sharp Healthcare. We ask them to give us an approximation of value when they donate the items, because it's really not appropriate for us to put a value on them. And so we didn't get a response when we asked that question. That's why we put unknown on those items.
Okay, so basically that's just the construction, and then everything else is the unknown.
Yes.
Okay. I just wasn't sure.
I think this is the first time we've had such detailed lists. Yeah. It doesn't just say from Palomar College, lab supplies. It's pretty specific.
When we asked for donated items and the information, that's what was provided to us.
Great.
And we thought it was best to provide
Pass
you
it on
all
the
with
way
the
it was.
information
Right.
that we received.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Do you understand correctly that $5,600 donated to the care closet is the cost of the permit because it was constructed unpermitted? Is it correct?
That is the cost to do additional work on the wall to bring it up to DSA standards.
So the point what I was making, even though we always appreciate all donations and they all go through the board approval before we accept them, and that's the process, and every entity follows that process. In case of the care closets, it's different. That was constructed and it was done before we approved anything. It was done without the board's permission. It was done without permission of the district. And now it's it's tried to be approved retroactively. That has never been done like this before.
It has always been done like this.
Retroactively?
It's always been done like this.
Like, I bet you that those golf clubs are somewhere on the school campus already.
Yeah,
even though they're here on this
to
list.
give you some historical perspective, we never got this. And as a board, we wanted to be able to recognize the generosity of this community. So we asked that they be reported to this board so that we would have the opportunity to recognize them in open session. This is probably the last 3 years, maybe, Don?
Maybe a little longer. I
Okay.
remember this was, again, this was something I was keenly interested
Exactly,
in, right?
yeah.
Like, I would hear, oh, there was a donation of this or that. And I thought, well, the board never knows that, and we don't acknowledge that here. So we created an agenda
If I remember
item.
correctly, it was not with the intention of saying yes or no.
It was a
to
recognition.
the generosity
Right.
of our community.
Right. And I guess it is still our discretion about whether we want this to be an action item or an information item on future agendas. I don't know when, I don't even know if it was action when we first started, other than we wanted to formally acknowledge.
Right.
So, I mean, it could be an information piece. There's no requirement that these kinds of things come to the board.
Which piece information?
We created our own situation.
Tori, is there a certain dollar amount where we have to have board approval? Like if it's like $100,000 or something that we have to approve?
It's based on our board policy regarding donations. I would need to look it up. I want to say we do have a dollar threshold on it, and that's what we ask the school sites and departments for when we are asking for the information for the board item. We tell them anything over, I think it's $50
Oh.
is to be reported to us.
Okay.
I want to say $50 is sticking in my head. If I was to, Leslie's going to pull up the policy.
But
for me.
that's acceptance. That's not really, the opportunity for the board to say, no, we don't want your gifts. I think it was, I suppose we do have the ability, we could say no, if there are
And
certain.
there are times when we have.
Because there were strings attached to
Yes.
certain grants.
Yes.
And we said, no, we don't want those restrictions.
Right.
Or those strings.
Or it was, maybe there was a suggestion of a gift from a business that engages in activity that's not appropriate for students.
Yep. So,
Well, I think it's fine if it's informational. The whole idea is to recognize that.
yeah. And that was the intent. And
That was.
if I remember, it was your initiative.
It was, because we were just hearing about things, kind of after the fact or very casually.
Grapevine-ish.
Yeah, a little grapevine-ish, and we had people working really hard. For Us comes to mind, and it's
Right,
like,
yes.
I'd really like a way to recognize those efforts here at our board table.
But I guarantee you that there are more donations that are on this
Yes.
list. 'Cause
Happens
we have
every day.
every single sport.
Every time
that's
somebody
not
cleans out a
putting them on.
closet and drops off a trombone at the middle school,
Or somebody shows up with
right?
lunch for the teachers.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All the donation volunteer hours.
Okay, so Leslie's looking it up.
I haven't finished.
Yes.
So, I take it back. That's haven't
Yeah.
been done before.
Right.
So I'm not sure any construction was done without permission before.
Right.
So, but the use of this space is not inclusive to all students, but only to selected few. And by constructing this space, the district lost a massive number space where the books used to be, and we constantly get rid of massive number of books on several school sites, including RHS. And the reason being, we were told that there's very little space in those school libraries. Then why the space was reduced even more? Or if the space was not an issue, then why we were told at the board meeting that the very small library space was one of the reasons to purge the massive number of books. Also, the district, I don't think, can afford to dedicate resources to anything that does not directly support or serve educational purposes. Our test scores are already not that high, and the focus needs to be on education only and nothing else. And if there's indeed some extra space in the RHS library, then it needs to go to some other programs that need that space. And in February, we had that special board meeting where numerous CTE programs came to us, and they were asking that they need a space for this and for that, even to store things. And it could be space, for example, to where some CTE programs could be storing things or could be using that space for educational purposes. And this way, that space was taken out of circulation for all students, for public purpose, for a selected few. Yeah, I remember in those in need of space for example, engineering program, Mrs. Hill, a welding program, Mr. Martineau was speaking, automotive program, Mr. Grace. Giving this closet a library space to them would directly serve an educational purpose. This is just an example. Also, the district is not in business of providing basic needs or charity. For basic needs, there are parents. For charity, there are churches. Our schools don't have the capacity to fulfill every need of every student. The more we get distracted by non-educational things, the lower our test scores will go. Basic needs of students under 18 years old are their parents' responsibility. Our district already provides free breakfast and lunch to every student. Additionally, the state of California provides very generous benefits to low-income residents. The food benefits include food stamps and CalFresh food distribution by the San Diego Food Bank, Feeding San Diego, and the Ramona Food and Clothes Closet. Local churches hold free food distributions. Medical, True Care, and Women's Clinic in Ramona provide free or almost free health care. CalWorks helps with housing, food, utilities, clothing, or medical care. If after all this, the parents still don't provide basic needs to their children, it's not because they can't, but because they don't want to. And not providing basic needs is defined by the state of California as child abuse. There's no excuse for kids in our community to struggle to have the basics. If there's a child that is not being fed breakfast or doesn't have a sweater or doesn't have money for lunch, the last problem they have is an apple or a sweater. They are coming from such a dangerous and dysfunctional household that you don't give them a sweater or deodorant, you give them social workers. You need to send CPS down there. Obviously, there is a whole lot more going on in that house that you, if you want to get involved, giving them lunch or box of food or pair of shoes is just turning a blind eye, and it's the height of irresponsibility.
Are you done? Call for the question.
Okay. Okay.
So I wonder if we can, for example, have parents' permission slip.
We're going to call for the
it's
question.
fine. This agenda item is approval of acceptance of gifts. We do have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay.
Would it be possible to require some kind of permission slip for the care closet? The parents are aware, so they know that they may not want their kids to get this particular food or this particular clothing. So we don't encroach in parental rights. Can we consider this? So parents visit the care closet?
Not tonight, we can't.
Yeah,
not on the
it's
agenda.
not an agenda item tonight. It certainly could be something that we discuss in the future. I do, just the idea that this space was taken away from use for all students for a select few, I disagree with that. I think any student that wants to could approach whoever, Ms. McDonald, or I thought that we were kind of getting this to a PTA project, but whoever it is that's manning the booth there, I think any student could go. So I don't think this is taking that space away from all kids.
What about CTE programs?
It's just using it.
Can I just add one thing?
Yep.
Just a clarification. When it comes to storage space, the classrooms need storage space in their classroom.
Right.
That's what they're asking for. It's not that if they had it in a different building, that would
It's
not
not
work.
long-term
That wouldn't
storage
work
of stuff
out
that
because
they
then
would
they'd have
never
to
use, right?
supervise the kids going back and forth.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work. But the other thing is, I'm going to make a suggestion, and that is that this becomes an ASB project, and you have the Just Serve, which is all about serving people, that this is their project. That is the solution to this. Now it is the students' project.
Okay. Well, that's something that we can work through. We've made it through this agenda item. So I'll move on to section I, district operations. Our next item is I1, and that's approval of our annual organizational meeting date. Okay.
Do we need
You want me
an
to speak to that?
introduction?
I think you can make a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Everyone's going to be there, right? No one's traveling for this meeting? Okay.
Not yet.
Well, I might get stuck in South America. I don't know. I got stuck in Greece for a while.
Ooh, did you get stuck in Greece? Oh,
Yeah, just for an
okay.
extra 3 days.
All right. Sorry, my screen just went to something else. Okay, item I2 is nominations for California School Board Association Delegate Assembly. This is every other year I come asking to be nominated, or one of you graciously nominates me without being asked. This time my term is not expiring, so
Can we ask you a question?
You may.
Do you want to serve?
I really do enjoy serving in this way, and I think there's value for our district in having a voice. Districts like ours are underrepresented, and that is an understatement when I say that.
You know, you're asking to go to another meeting. That's why I'm asking.
I
if you
already
really
go.
want to.
Right. So my term does not expire on this cycle, therefore I need no nomination at this time. But if we wanted to nominate someone from another district, we could do that with some criteria. Is there any interest in doing so at this time?
Yes, and I would add, Karina received confirmation that it could be another member from our own board that would
Okay.
want to do that. We weren't
Oh.
sure about that, but
Right.
she confirmed that.
Is there anybody on our board that wants to serve in that capacity? Darren?
No, thank you, sir.
Oh, I was just asking because you guys were quiet over there.
I was trying
I
not
have
to
no
make eye
idea.
contact.
Yeah.
with you.
I have no
Right.
idea.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in doing it.
Okay. So it sounds like no nomination coming from
Any
here.
suggestions of colleagues in the area that you think would serve well in this capacity?
So I do not at this time. There's a director and a president for the local chapter of the California School Boards Association, and the 42 districts here are pretty well represented. When there's a vacancy mid-cycle, they try to identify areas geographically or types of districts that don't seem to have good representation. So at times maybe there's not enough high school districts involved. So when there's a vacancy, they'll try and
And
pluck
this is
somebody
just
from a high school district.
San Diego County.
This is for San Diego County, and anyone that's nominated, it's not a done deal. Then you know that in a few months we would have a vote, right? You'll see that ballot that we sometimes see with the list of names, and
Right.
and vote them in that way.
Okay.
So, okay. All right. So we are now on I3, and that's our superintendent's report.
Yes, good evening, President Perfect, board members, members of the public. Welcome to the next to last board meeting of the calendar year. As we just mentioned, our next board meeting will be the organizational meeting on December 16th. Tonight, I want to just draw some attention to an important process that school districts go through from time to time, and some more often than others. But it's an extremely time-consuming process, compliance-driven, very detail-oriented, impacts every division of a school district. It's called Federal Program Monitoring. It's referred to as FPM. And we get notified months in advance. We've been preparing for this since the summer. And today we had an official check-in with California Department of Education staff. They were very complimentary of the progress, where we're at. We have a more formal review next week. There were 4 or 5 different staff from CDE that has been reviewing our information. Like I said, this involves all divisions and school sites as well. In the summer, when we were informed, I think it was probably a day, maybe not even a day, before Mrs. Wilson had a full binder for us with tabs for all of the items and lists. There's hundreds of documents at least, but thousands of pages with everything. Yeah, I know. I was expected 2 hours, but it did take maybe a half a day or so. But extremely organized, and I know her department started immediately. I thank the CDE staff for giving us feedback right away, early on in the process. And so then Tori was with us through that being new, but just a lot of work from a lot of divisions to get this information in. I also expressed to the CDE team that they have been so cooperative with us, which is a little different than other past FPM processes that I've been in. Leslie sort of just in starting us off talked about the process, and we're open for their input and learning from them. They noted that was very refreshing and very professional, and just what a really good model, they said, that they don't normally hear. So just very, very grateful for her and all the team that have been doing this. Sites have had to be very responsive to ed services, to admin services, to HR. There's just been a lot of work there. Even on the uploading process, there's a certain way they want that, and it's very, very detailed. So just wanted to make everyone aware of all of some of those things that happen at the DO that most people in the district aren't aware of. Also, just a couple of recent projects that came up. We've needed some lighting here, especially Tuesday and Thursday nights with the time change. It gets dark. We have seen some people walking to the ESL classes on Tuesday and fall in our dark parking lot in the past. But our M&O team at one of our meetings that I had, just informational meetings with the different divisions, were talking about how to work on that, and there were probably 10 people in the room, and someone said, well, we've got the light, we just don't have a post. Someone said, I think there's a post over here, might need some work. So long story short, the team took bits and pieces of posts, from what I understand, took the welding department, got the welding crew on it, created a post. They had the light. It's installed right now. They finished this morning. I think about 6:15. I had a text from Bobby with some pictures of it, and so I haven't stood under it yet. Karina said she saw it coming back with dinner tonight. They first told me it was around 100. Bobby came by right before closed session and said it was probably 150 to do the whole thing. So very excited about having some light there for our folks coming in. And then the other project was just a leaking pump that we had that was really problematic, that M&O really pulled their resources and actually outside vendors as well to stop that leak recently, which was really just a pain to take care of that. But thankfully it's been taken care of now. Last but not least, I want to congratulate President Perfect and Mr. Drum on your election and your running for your current seat, continuing that. We're grateful for your extensive past service and for the service to come. So we know that these positions are sometimes very difficult, very time-consuming, and a commitment away from your families, and we're grateful for your leadership for RUSD. Want to wish everyone a relaxing Thanksgiving break coming up, and please remember to participate in this season of thankfulness with family and friends by reflecting on all that we have to be grateful for, both in Ramona and San Diego County and our state and our country. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very nice report. Thank you. Okay, board members, I'll start at this end tonight. Maya?
Don't have much to say. Just want to congratulate Ramona High School girls tennis team on winning their second title in a row, league champions. And I did attend some of their tennis games, tennis matches, where it was nice to see our girls to be victorious.
Very nice.
I think they just had their banquet yesterday.
Yeah. I really like their coach. He's good. Okay, Roger.
Congratulations to Darren and Dawn.
Oh, thank you.
Being reelected, and I also wanted to say I'm looking forward to the CSBA annual conference. I'll be seeing everybody there. I plan to be there. And then I just wanted to say that this for the record, that the reason that we did the bond, that still has not gone away. We still have all those issues. We still have facilities that we need to repair. But beyond that, our schools are completely outdated. Let me just give you an example. The engineering is literally in a portable. We cannot buy the equipment that the engineering classes need and put it in the portable, because the floor will not sustain the weight of it. That's why we needed new buildings. It's not, I mean, there was nothing made up about that. And so we just do not have the capacity facility-wise to bring in what is needed to bring our students into the 21st century like we really should. And we just go down the hill and then we can see all these school districts where their communities have supported that. But I do want to thank all those that did support it. And hopefully that will change in the future. I think that it's really important that as a community that we do eventually come together on that, because this community, I mean, what is Ramona High School? When was it built? 70 years old or something. It's pretty old. It needs help, right? And I mean, our oldest school is what, over 100 years old, right? So, yeah, that's Ramona Elementary, right? So we really have to really think about how do we do it, because we know that our budget's not gonna do that. So I just encourage everybody to think about that as we move forward, because we have to. It was an issue before when I ran for the board almost 20 years ago, and it hasn't changed. Still an issue today. So it's something that we need to figure out. And I appreciate the superintendent and this board for considering different options, and also looking into the reimbursement option, because that will bring some monies in. It's just not enough money, but it'll bring some in, and we can do little projects here and there. But it won't be sustaining what we really need. It's not going to be sustainable over the long term.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, Darren.
Roger, I echo your comments completely. Moving on from that, Izzy, thanks for staying for the whole meeting. I hope we didn't bore you, but this is an important process, and I hope you're learning and taking something away from what's going on here. Thank you to the Ramona Rotary for their presentation tonight and for their ongoing support of our students, specifically the Students of the Month. Congratulations to Angie, Marley, and Katie. And I just want to say thank you to the teachers who came and presented to these kids. Your comments were heartfelt, and I hope impacted your student. I think it did, because I could tell it came right from your heart. And we need more teachers just like you, and just like the ones who took time away from their family tonight. And I recognize that, to come and celebrate their students. So thank you and well done. And that's it.
Very nice. Dan.
Thank you. I was very disappointed at the defeat of the bond. I think that we relied too heavily on a poll that indicated likely passage of the bond, and we grasped that poll, and we didn't promote the bond as strongly as we could and should have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that the teachers were willing to go out and support the bond, and that they were stopped from doing that. And I don't know why. We should have had, if teachers are willing to support the bond, why wouldn't we have them do it? And I think that we made some mistakes in the neglecting opportunities to promote it that we should have taken advantage of. That's it.
Lessons learned, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 0 for 7.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Padres going 0
All
for
right.
24 innings.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, on that note, we do not have any further public comment for tonight, but we do have more closed session business to attend to. I do not expect there to be a report out tonight, so at this point we will adjourn to closed session.